What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 8th Street Chapter 111. Visiting the patient. Shane looked at Dumbledore and asked seriously, "Professor, what kind of answer is this?" "It's actually very simple, just kill you twice in a row within 7 days. Hearing this, Shane subconsciously wanted to say that he also knew that if he was killed for the second time in 7 days, he would indeed die, but the next second he realized what Dumbledore meant. A wizard fighting with the kill ability has the ability to kill him a second time immediately. If someone wants to kill Shane, but knows the function of the pure white pocket watch, then they only need to kill Shane the first time, and then the second time, and Shane will really die. For example, when Shane and Quirrell confronted each other last night, if Quirrell knew the existence and purpose of the pure white pocket watch, he would have needed to use the second death spell, 970, immediately after the first death spell hit Shane. Only in this way can Shane be completely killed, which is what Dumbledore wanted to say. This is why Dumbledore said that the biggest flaw of a pure white pocket watch is that it is not concealed enough. Of course, even so, there is no doubt that the pure white pocket watch is a very precious magic item. Not many people knew about the pure white pocket watch. At least in front of Shane, Snape didn't know what the pure white pocket watch had done before. After discussing the topic of pure white pocket watches and having a brief conversation, Dumbledore bowed and left. Just when Dumbledore left and Snape was about to leave, he suddenly remembered something and turned to Shane and said, "Shane, there are 3 days until the end of the semester. I want to see your composition during these 3 days. If you are okay, if so, get up quickly and write your composition." Snape turned and walked briskly out of the room, leaving Shane with a confused expression, staring blankly at Snape. It is inhumane to stay in the hospital and do housework. Brett was sitting in the ward, watching his good brother sitting on the hospital bed writing papers quickly, and he was not sure what expression he should have on his face. On the morning when he received the letter sent by Shane, he was a little surprised that Shane suddenly integrated into the school hospital, but when he saw the letter, he was asked to go to his room to get documents and books, and also asked him to help feed Culkin. By now, Bryce was convinced that Shane wouldn't be in too much trouble. Originally, Blaise wanted to sympathize with Shane and ask him about last night, but instead of saying a word, he suddenly picked up something and started writing a paper on the hospital bed. If not for Madame Pomfrey's determination, instead of letting Shane be discharged from the hospital immediately, he was asked to stay in the hospital for another 2 days for observation. Blaise felt that Chong-En might have been sent to the library long ago. Looking at Shane at this moment, Blaise suddenly felt that the latter was not lazy at all on weekdays. Shouldn't he study more or less seriously? Just when Bryce was bored and was about to pick up a piece of fruit from the bedside table of the hospital bed, the door of the ward was pushed open again. Well, a familiar voice sounded. "Okay, I won't disturb you too." Blaise stood up, curtsied slightly to Gavin, then nodded to Shane and left the room. Bryce took his mother's surname, and his mother, Mrs. Zabini, was already married for the 7th time. Although the previous 6 marriages broke up not because of divorce, but because Mrs. Zabini's first 6 husbands had died, and the 7th husband is said to be seriously ill at the moment and his whereabouts are unknown. Holding the test paper, Gavin looked at it carefully. Gavin's face gradually became serious. He looked at the test paper seriously. It was not until the part that Shane wrote that he raised his eyes and said to Shane, "Although I have heard it a long time ago, you say your grades are pretty good, but I really didn't expect that at your current age, you have reached such a level." 5.7 At this time, Gavin glanced at Blaise, who had left the room, walked to Shane, looked at the test paper Shane was working on and asked, "Is there any homework for the exam?" Gavin nodded and said, "Smart kid. I want to talk to Shane. Can you please step back?" Of course, Gavin mentioned his mother in front of Bryce at this time, but Bryce did not show any displeasure, because Bryce was well aware of his mother's financial strength in the wizarding world, and could share the same with his mother. The person having dinner must be an elder of a certain family. Combining the age of the interlocutor and Shane's reaction, Bryce guessed the identity of the interlocutor. Walking aside, Shaw-En nodded and said, "Of course. In fact, when Mrs. Zabini's 3rd husband died, a distant relative of the 3rd husband went to the Ministry of Magic to find someone to investigate the cause of Mrs. Zabini's death. As a result, the Ministry of Magic confirmed that there was no cause of death for the 3rd husband. The problem was indeed an accident, and for the next 3 husbands, they were also investigated, and the results were that they all died of accidents or illness. This also proves Mrs. Zabini's blue sky and white clouds. Mr. Belstead Sr. is the patriarch of the Belstead family. Bryce thought for a while and felt that he must have gotten up too early, otherwise why would he have such outrageous ideas and want to study hard? Just kidding, can studying be as fun as falling in love? As soon as he heard this voice, Shane immediately broke away from writing the paper. He turned his head and looked at the door of the room. Gavin was standing there. He did not speak to Shane immediately, but looked at Blaise in the room and nodded. "Blaise, right? I attended a class reunion with some old friends last month, and your mother happened to be there too. We talked about you while we were chatting. Now that I have met you in person, you are a pretty good person, very energetic. It's been a long time since I've been to the Hogwarts wards. They've changed a lot. Brace immediately stood up, put the peaches he had already held aside, and said to Gavin respectfully, "Is this Mr. Belstead?"
Oh. Gavin looked at Shane's paper again and asked, "Can I see it?" On weekdays, Brace dislikes people mentioning his mother, but this is not because he dislikes his mother. On the contrary, Brace loves his mother very much, but most people who mention his mother in front of him are malicious and talkative.
Because of this, Blaze doesn't like people mentioning his mother in front of him.
Professor Snape asked me to write an essay about the final exam. But because of this, Mrs. Zabini is also known as the Black Widow in the wizarding world. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 112 Friend or Servant. Putting the newspaper aside, Gavin thought for a while, and then said, "Shane, do you know about the golden robe?" Shane looked at Gavin and said with a slightly weird expression, "I know, because Professor Snape asked me to write this paper. When I finish it, he will correct it and publish it in Golden Spinning." Quote. Gavin's expression was obviously a little surprised, because Gavin knew Snape, and of course he also knew Snape's character and his dual identity as a Death Eater and a member of the Order of the Phoenix. Now when he heard that Snape asked him to write Shane's paper and guide him to publish it at the Golden Spinner Award, Gavin, who knew Snape, was naturally very surprised. Seeing Gavin's expression, Shane immediately guessed what he was thinking. He smiled slightly and said to Gavin, "Actually, Professor Snape is very good to me and teaches me a lot of things." Nearly 10 years ago, the Magic Journal Review Department of the Magician Association provided Snape with an opportunity to become one of the magicians who specially reviewed Jinxie's articles. If he accepted, he only needed to serve in this position for enough time. After a long time, when the qualifications exceeded, he could join the Wizards Association and become one of the 50 members, but unfortunately, he finally refused, preferring to teach at Hogwarts as his vocation. Quote. Shane didn't quite understand what Gavin was talking about, but he probably knew that the reason why Snape decided to stay at Hogwarts was probably because of Lily's child Harry. Feelings. Grandpa, are you a Wizengamot? Gavin smiled slightly and asked, "Why do you ask that?" Guess. You guessed it right. I am indeed a member of the Wizengamot, but I don't particularly care about anything. I just vote on weekdays. Is Professor Dumbledore okay? Ha ha ha. Kid, don't think of Grandpa as scary. Grandpa is still very amiable, right? Looking at the smiling Gavin, Shane also smiled and said, "On weekdays, I also think Professor Dumbledore is gentle and kind, and he seems quite friendly, just like you, Grandpa." "Grandpa, you said I look like Dumbledore." I replied that Dumbledore is scary, but I am very amiable. "You say you are affable, and I say Dumbledore is affable, and neither of you will change." "What kind of wave is that?" "This wave, this wave is the ultimate pull between cheap grandkids." Gavin looked at Shane, and the smile on his face became more and more obvious. He knew very well that his cheap grandson must be guessing or suspecting something, but to Gavin, guessing and doubting were indifferent, because there were some things it's a conspiracy. Once it starts, it will definitely have results. Hearing these words, a trace of awe and embarrassment appeared on the face of the middle-aged man whom Gavin called Mir. He lowered his head and replied in a low voice, "You said that the Mir family is the Mir family and the Belstead family. Friends, not servants of the Belstead family. The Belstead family does not need servants, only friends. This time I am here, in addition to checking on your situation, I also want to convey something to you. I have contacted Bobaden Magic School in Romantic Country.
You can go to Bobaden to study for a month during the holidays. During this month, you can think of yourself as a Bobaden student. You have all the abilities that ordinary Bobaden students have.
At the same time, there are some students who stay in school during the holidays, and you can also interact with them. They communicate. Apparition is impossible in Hogwarts, so Gavin walked directly out of the walls of Hogwarts and came to Hogsmeade. However, he did not immediately use apparition to leave, but went straight to Hogwarts. There were already people waiting for him at Germaude's Three Broomsticks pub. Gavin's body slowly leaned over, and the sense of oppression became stronger and stronger as he continued. "Mir, your son, he is a friend of the two boys from my Berthold family, and he. Is it okay not to go? I don't like it very much." Nodding slightly, Gavin continued, "I just want to give it a try. After all, you have worked hard to achieve what you have today. But having said that, Mill, do you still remember what I said to you when I promised to help you?" Quote. Walking to the table, Gavin looked at the father and son who stood up to greet him. He waved slightly for them to sit down. He himself sat down directly opposite the father and son and asked, "Mir. Under your care, the family affairs are flourishing, previous debts have been repaid, the last bit of 550 family legacy has been saved. How are your family doing lately? Family scholarships doubled next year. Grandpa, you also know that I haven't seen my parents for a long time and I want to spend more time with them during the holidays.
I hope you can find clues about Bowbottom." Gavin stood up and was about to leave. At this moment, Gavin suddenly remembered something and turned to Shane and said, "I have made an appointment with someone. Are you here? After you get off at platform 9 3/4, these two people will wait for you there, and then take you directly to Bowbottom. They will be responsible for your daily life in Bowbottom and deal with some troublesome matters."
I will send you home after the month to reunite you with your parents.
Seeing that Shane didn't mind, Gavin saluted him with a smile, turned around and left.
Shane frowned slightly. He didn't expect this cheap grandpa to be so anxious. He originally thought he could go home and live with his parents for a while before going to Bowbottom, but now it seems that he will go to Bowbottom as soon as he graduates from Hogwarts. To be honest, Shane was not very willing to take this path, but in view of the triple family allowance, he still tolerated it. I've wanted to visit Bowbattons for a long time, and now it's vacation, so I can go and see it. Thank you very much for organizing this event and bringing you. 3 times. Shane looked at Gavin's back and sighed helplessly. After resting for a while, he lowered his head and started writing the paper. You remember. Very clearly. Gavin sat up, looked at Mir, showed a smile that made Mir feel more and more stressed, and said, but your son still did what a servant does. Became a knife that interfered with the internal affairs of my birth-old family.
The most important thing is that this knife obviously failed and did not follow the rules in the Covenant battle, so I am not sure whether I understand.
Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 113 Servant. Gavin asked a question, and Jason's face suddenly turned pale. He wanted to say something, but found that he couldn't say a word. An invisible pressure tightly grasped his heart like an invisible palm, making Jason's breathing less steady. At that moment, Jason felt that Gavin sitting in front of him seemed like an evil dragon that might devour him at any time, and fear surged in Jason's heart. Seeing his son's condition, Mir sighed helplessly. When he contacted Burrell secretly, hoping to get more help from the Belst family, this was also considered an investment. If under normal circumstances, only Gavin's son Burrell can do magic, and only his grandson Millicent can do magic, then the future of the Burstead family will naturally be decided by the father and son, and Mill feels that there is no problem with his choice.
But on the contrary, when Hogwarts started school this year, Shane suddenly appeared.
Although Shane's parents seemed indifferent, in the Burstead family, Shane was a possible heir to the Burstead family.
If the head of the family, Gavin, doesn't have such a plan, which makes sense.
However, it seems that no matter what Gavin's plan is, his current goal of training Shane is to be the future head of the family, just like Millicent. Therefore, small actions that didn't seem like a big deal before have now become big things. Tonight, Gavin seemed to be attacking Jensen, but in fact he was attacking the Miller family. Looking at Jason, whose face was getting more and more ugly, Mir realized that he had to make a decision. He had to stay away from Burrell, even if he completely insulted Gavin's only magical son, he had to do so. Otherwise Mir's family would wait before Burrell gains power, he will be completely exposed by Gavin. Thinking of this, a stiff smile appeared on Mir's face, and he said to Gavin, Mr. Bursad, our Mir family is ready to become friends of the Bursad family. Gavin looked at Mira and his expression turned into a smile. At this moment, the aura that enveloped Jason was instantly withdrawn. Jason gasped as if he was drowning and looked at Gavin with great fear. Very good, the Bursted family wants more friends. Tomorrow you will hand over the business related to importing materials from North America. No matter where you are from, then go to the Bursted family's trading company to contact you. Recently, Bursted the Stead family has a business of importing magic materials from the Dragon Kingdom, and the Mir family has the right to take a share of it. I am the head of the Belstead family. What I give you is yours. What others gave me, I can take it away at any time. As soon as Gavin finished speaking, he immediately realized this. It is much easier to do business in the Dragon Kingdom than in North America. This is known to all countries in the world. This is also a sweet date set by Gavin. There is nothing that countries in the world do not want to do. Peace, if there is anything, some things are inevitable anyway. Jason is involved in some things with the Burstad family. Since he is involved, then don't go. Hogwarts this semester when it's over, I will arrange for Shane to be sent to Bowbattons for a month. From that day on, Jason will take care of Shane. Hearing this, Mir's expression changed drastically. He immediately wanted to apologize for Jason, but Gavin didn't wait for him to speak and continued, 6 years. This is how long Jason will follow Shane. After 6 years, Jason can go wherever he wants. If he stays, he must follow Shane for 6 years and can only look up to him. Mir opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he couldn't say it quickly because he knew very well that if he refused, the services Gavin mentioned for the Mir family would disappear completely. The De family and the Mir family are really going to part ways.
Without the protection of the Belstead family, the Mir family will indeed become fat.
Jason stared at his father's face. He had been with his father since he was a child, so he was developed and knew a lot. Otherwise, how could a 12 or 13-year-old high school sophomore be willing to be Milson's punching bag without any complaints? Now he saw Mir looked embarrassed, and he made a decision immediately. Master Belstead, I am willing to follow Master Shane. I promise that during the period of following Master Shane, I will work for Master Shane wholeheartedly, and I will never have any thoughts that should not exist. As soon as these words came out, Gavin looked at Jason, his eyes instantly showed gratitude. He looked at Jason, nodded slightly, and said, I have always known that the Mill family has a child with quite good abilities. After studying at Hogwarts for a year, he mastered many armored spells that even adult wizards could not master.
But at that time, I thought you were just a child with great magic talent.
I didn't think you were just a child with good magic talent. But at the time I just thought you were just a kid with a great talent for magic. However, your words just now let me see your superior side. You are tolerant and considerate that many adult wizards do not have, and you are very good. Quote. Mir looked at Jason, his eyes full of guilt, reached out and patted Jason on the back, and whispered, Jason, our whole family owes you a favor.
Father, I am a member of this family. This family owes me nothing.
I don't owe it to my family. Gavin looked at Jason, raised a smile at the corner of his mouth, and said, Okay, this matter is settled. From now on, Jason and Shane will be considered a member of the Basted family. At that time, according to the outside of the Basted family, as a member, he will enjoy the treatment of officials and people. You should prepare in advance. When the Hogwarts Express arrives at platform 9 3/4, Jason will follow Shane to find Booth Barton.
Wang Qian's, having said all that should be said, Gavin did not stay any longer, but stood up and left.
Mir glanced at Gavin before leaving, said nothing, and took Jason directly to Hogwarts. Shane looked at the letter sent by Gavin in his hand, with a strange expression on his face.
He had just handed the report he had written to Snape. After reading it, Snape probably received 10 minutes of venom from the Slytherin Snake King. He returned the report with 13 errors and was criticized as worthless.
When I got to my room and was about to leave with a look of helplessness, I received a letter sent by Bryce obligingly.
It says that for the next 6 years, Jason will follow him as his guardian, and after that, he will stay with Shane until Bowbottom. Holding the letter from the square in his hand, Shane had a headache. Who is this stingy old man and what is he doing? Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 114. After the exam, Shane stood in Snape's office, as quiet as a chicken. Snape sat in a chair and looked through Shane's files. After revising 7 times in 2 days, Shane has become a little numb to the changes in the paper. Now he just hopes to pass the exam this time. He doesn't want to write another paper in a short time.
Very well, take the paper back and make another copy, using the best parchment paper, and attach a few letters, and then ask Fukuro to send both the paper and the letters to this address.
If the paper passes, the Wizengamot will send you a paper acceptance certificate, a golden ticket and a sample issue of Golden Crucible. If it does not pass, you will receive a receipt and the original paper. Is there a prize for being selected for the competition? If Shane hadn't been revising his paper like crazy recently, Snape would have wanted to spray poisonous gas at him. As long as your paper is published in the Golden Crucible, according to its importance, the Golden Crucible editorial board will give it to him.
For your corresponding money, if someone cites your paper in the future, you will also be given a certain amount of remuneration, but don't hold out too much hope.
That part of the money is very small, and it is not as much as what you made selling potions at Hogwarts. Hearing this, Shane chuckled twice without further explanation. He never thought that he could hide the fact that he was selling potions at Hogwarts from these professors. As long as he guarantees the quality of the potions and doesn't give bad ones to others, no professor will cause trouble for him.
Okay, send the newspaper to this address and check the time. The new issue of Jinxie will be due soon. If you are fast enough, you should be able to send the previous issue of the newspaper in time. As for whether you can if it doesn't work out, we'll see soon.
Okay, then I'll deliver the newspaper. Seeing Snape hesitating, Shane realized it was time for him to leave. After a year of living together, they reached a consensus. Approaching the Fukuro hut in the West Tower, Shane found a strong-looking Fukuro, handed it the documents, told it the address, and let it fly high into the sky. As time goes by, the little wizards who are in a state of remission, AHCI, after the exam gradually fall into a state of both anticipation and fear. They are looking forward to the holidays soon, but at the same time they are afraid of the discomfort caused by the announcement of the final results. Certainty. This was something that was particularly noticed not by the students but by one of the best students of her age, Hermione. With a pair of dark circles under her eyes, Hermione sat at the Gryffindor table in the Great Hall with a concerned expression on her face. You know, what if I fail the Transfiguration exam? I remember I wrote the wrong question. I will definitely fail the exam, and Professor McGonagall will be very disappointed with me. And my potion, Snape always dislikes Gryffindor, what if he deliberately messes with me? It's over, I will definitely mess up the potion. Harry and Ron sat next to Hermione, both with unhappy expressions on their faces. They had told Hermione many times that there would be no problem in the exam, but even if Harry and Ron reassured her again and again, Hermione could only calm down for 3 to 5 minutes, and then she would continue to fall into endless doubts, which made her previously sure that she would pass. Harry and Ron, who were taking the exam, now also doubted themselves a little. Just when Harry didn't know how to comfort Hermione, he suddenly saw Shane walking into the Great Hall from outside. Harry stood up without any hesitation and walked quickly towards Shane. Since being knocked unconscious by Voldemort's magic that day, Harry has never been able to have a good conversation with Shane.
In addition, Shane has been writing a paper since then and has not come out as gay, and Harry cannot enter the Slytherin common room to contact anyone, resulting in Harry not having a chance to talk to Shane for so many days.
Although Dumbledore said that Harry was protected by maternal love and Voldemort could not hurt him, Harry still felt that if Shane had not come to help him earlier, he might have been killed by Voldemort. As soon as they entered the lounge, they saw a large group of people gathered in front of the bulletin board.
When they took a closer look, they realized that they were the two newly selected concession residents next year. Who exactly were they? Shane didn't look any further, and he wasn't very interested either. But before Shane could leave, Samuel and Irina walked up to Shane together. Looking at Jason, Shane remembered the letter he had received earlier. Gavin had told him that Jason would be in his entourage for 6 years, and now it seemed that was true.
Forget about it and take it one step at a time. Shane and Brace are both very tired recently, Shane because he is writing an essay to be sent to the Golden Robe Award, and Brace mainly because of his date. Blaze has been in a bad mood these past 2 days. He and his third-year students have been quarreling over trivial matters recently. Blaze is becoming increasingly impatient to deal with it, otherwise he would not be able to go back to the lounge with Shane today. You mean? Principal Dumbledore is protecting me? Harry had an expression of disbelief on his face. I don't know if I can say no, at least that's what I think. After finishing the 3 meals, Shane and Brace came to the lounge together. Harry led Shane to the foot of the Great Hall and whispered, "Shane, if you hadn't saved me just now, I might have been ambushed. Mysterious man and Quirrell.
This is also very troublesome. Harry, actually even without me, the mysterious man would probably not be able to hurt you, and I think Quirrell's little moves at Hogwarts should not be hidden from the principal's eyes, so I always believe that the principal actually knows about Quirrell.
For those little tricks, he just wanted to find out Quirrell's purpose and the mastermind behind it. Even without me, the principal, I wouldn't let Quirrell or even the mysterious man hurt you." Shane suddenly saw Jason sitting next to him, and Jason was also looking at him. Previously, when Jason saw Shane, he would deliberately shift his gaze or look away when Shane was not paying attention, but this time Jason did not continue to do this, but nodded slightly to Shane and said hello.
Shane had been standing there when he saw Harry walking towards him, but now that he heard Harry's words, he walked straight towards Harry. "Shane, wait, but from what I know about this cheap grandpa, he is too good to pass up."
"Harry, what's wrong with you?" Looking at Harry, who returned to the Gryffindor table, Shane also returned to the Slytherin table, sat down opposite Bryce, picked up a knife and fork and started eating. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 115 Acknowledgement and Investment. "Samuel, Irina, what's wrong with you? This way."
Samuel took Shane to a corner of the lounge and asked him to sit down, and then Irina used her wand to summon the house elves of Hogwarts to make black tea for the 3 of them. After drinking the black tea, Irina spoke first. "Shane, do you still remember what you said to me before the Quidditch game?" Of course, Shane still remembered that he had proposed to Irina the idea of recruiting Malfoy into the first-year Slytherin Quidditch team as an exception, and then used this as a trade to give the Malfoy family a Nimbus 2000 as support. But Malfoy has been so useless that Harry didn't catch the golden snitch for so long. Looking at Irina, J-Orog guessed something and nodded. "Isn't that game over? After all, we still lost. If you lose, but it was a very good idea, and it was approved by the 7th grade director. Although we ended up losing the Quidditch game, we didn't lose anything because of this idea. The benefits you deserve." Looking at the smiles on Samuel and Irina's lips, Shane realized that these two people had obviously benefited a lot.
It seemed that the 2 7th grade principals appreciated Slytherin's 7th consecutive House Cup victory. It's not small, and there are obviously things here that Shane doesn't quite understand. "So, Samuel, Irina, you don't want me to congratulate you, do you?" Hearing Shane's words, Samuel and Irina both had smiles on their faces, and then Irina said, "There are many people who know about this, but not everyone can know it, but based on your ability it seems that joining us should be a deciding factor, so it won't be a big deal to tell you. Slytherin alumni will join an organization called the Slytherin Brotherhood after graduation. Of course, the name is a fraternity, but in fact outstanding women can also join. This is not important. The important thing is that the members of this organization all agree to maintain order. This is an intangible asset, and the 2 of us are on the line between joining or not joining. Thanks to your idea, we have officially crossed the border. After crossing this line, we officially joined the Slytherin Brotherhood. It is very rare to join 2 years before graduation. We will stay in this organization for a long time. All because of you." Shane said congratulations while thinking about the Slytherin Brotherhood.
Obviously, this is very similar to some brotherhoods in the ordinary world. Once politicians and businessmen in the ordinary world join the same brotherhood, the relationship between them is second only to the relationship between relatives in the same family. A school that seems unattainable to outsiders, you only need a letter of recommendation from a celebrity who is in the same fraternity as the principal, and you can safely enter this school with the letter of recommendation, and that's not all. The Slytherin Brotherhood appears to be a similar organization.
"Shane, joining the Slytherin Brotherhood is very important to us. If we enter the Ministry of Magic in the future, we can immediately use this relationship to contact the authorities in the Ministry of Magic. They are also members of the Slytherin Brotherhood, which will definitely help us.
Even if you don't enter the Ministry of Magic and decide to go into business, you can still get some extra help, so Irina and I discussed it and decided to give you some thank you gifts, please accept them." Quote.
After that, Samuel took out 2 contracts with the Invisible Expansion, spell from his belongings and place them in front of Shane.
There are two contracts, one is made of ordinary paper, the other is made of quite high-quality parchment, one corresponds to the ordinary world, and the other corresponds to the magical world.
You have realized that these two contracts are one for the Muggle world and one for the Wizarding world.
They respectively correspond to a high-end hotel chain in the Muggle world and a store in Diagon Alley in the Wizarding world.
The former has hundreds of 5/5 of the shares, and the latter has 3% of the shares.
As long as you sign these two contracts, you can obtain these shares and get corresponding dividends every year.
Shane turned over the two contracts in front of him and shook his head. It's too expensive, I don't want it.
Shane, compared to the help you gave us, it's not expensive.
0. Please give me flowers. Looking at them, Shane clearly realized that this stock was not so much a thank you, but an investment by Samuel and Irina in themselves. In the past, their investment was more of a verbal investment, and they just wanted to continue to pay attention to them. And now they feel like they can really start investing in themselves and use this opportunity to come up with more stuff as a real investment.
Theoretically, Shane could take them away and it would make no difference to him, but Shane doesn't like that. He doesn't like taking someone else's goodwill for nothing because you have to pay more in the future to exchange it. Return this goodwill. The investment is delicious, but Shane wouldn't starve without it, and you don't have to tie yourself down for a delicious piece. 0.0. You keep the store share in the magic world and exchange the store share in the civilian world for 2% as a reward for my helping you, so I can take it away.
Samuel and Irina looked at each other, and they both saw regret in each other's eyes. They wanted to invest, but others might not accept it. If it was Shane before, they might think they were ignorant, but now, whether it's Shane's several duels, his delay in joining the Potions Club, or even the recent vague news that Shane will write an article for Golden Brook News, it all proves that Shane has great potential.
People didn't want to invest, but there was nothing Samuel and Irina could do. Irina took out her magic wand and flicked the contract, and the original 5% became the 2% on the Ordinary People's World hotel chain contract. Upon seeing this, Shane scrawled his name on the contract with his magic wand. Now, in this world of ordinary people, this high-end hotel chain also has Shane's 2% stake, and they are actually Shane's for him, owned by parents. Although Shane's parents knew about the existence of the magical world, they lived an ordinary life. Shane's parents had not lived a very good life all along. They grew up in the magical world and did not receive the education and work of ordinary people. It is also relatively ordinary, and life is actually very difficult. But now, with these 2% shares, they can live an ordinary middle-class life.
Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 116. I don't know either. Editor-in-Chief, another article has come in. The newspapers are stored in the library for the time being. The new issue of the magazine will be finished soon. We don't have time to read the new newspapers. The editor-in-chief is a middle-aged man, about 50 years old, with a somewhat stout figure. He wears a long robe, and his sparse hair hangs down to the top of his head, like an abstract painting. He holds a black pipe in his mouth and speaks every sentence. The words will blow out a puff of smoke. Editor-in-chief, I think you'd better read this newspaper. Looking at the paper handed over by his subordinates, the editor-in-chief frowned and hesitated for a moment. He was looking at the editor under him. The editor-in-chief brought him out personally. He knew that this person was not a person who insisted on letting himself be so persistent. Looking at this piece of paper, there must be some reason. After the editor-in-chief took over the newspaper, 533, he immediately opened it and read it. As he looked at it, the editor-in-chief's frown slightly relaxed and he said, "The formula and process of the Forgotten Potion have been changed, which has greatly shortened the customization time of the Forgotten Potion. A very good article, but it's a pity that the changes only affect magic potions such as the Forgetting Potion. If it were a popular and widely used magic potion, this article would have made the front page headlines. The quality of this work is very good, and it is fully qualified to be selected for the Golden Crucible. Of course, it is only selected for the Golden Crucible, and its quality is not enough for the Golden Crucible to take it seriously. It is just one of many qualified works in the history of the Golden Crucible. One of the works. Qualified papers should be submitted to the paper library. If there is room in the next issue or the next issue, one of them can be counted. Editor-in-chief, take another look. What are you looking at? What happened to you today? Look at the address and signature." The editor frowned, opened the newspaper, looked at the address and signature, and couldn't help but read. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Slytherin House, Shane Belstead. Raising his head, the editor-in-chief looked at the young editor and asked in disbelief. "A newspaper written by Hogwarts students? 6th grade or 7th grade? You can write an article and submit it to the Golden Crucible before you graduate?" Diaries in the magical world are somewhat different from diaries in the ordinary world. For example, in the magic world, all magazines are branded with magic, and there is no such thing as plagiarism or first draw competition. Golden Stream will also take the initiative to indicate the real name and place of origin of the person who took the trouble to write the article, so, Golden Stream. The editors of Chishui are not worried at all that someone will pull some tricks. Editor-in-chief, look at his last name. What's your last name? The editor looked down and saw Shane's last name. He was stunned for a moment, and then sighed. Bursted? Or that Bursted? I remember that only 2 of the Bursted family's children were admitted to the Hunan University of Science and Technology.
Gwarts, and they were all admitted this year, so this essay was written by a freshman. How is this possible?
Editor-in-Chief, I checked. This Shane Belstead is the Belstead baby born to the silly son of the Belstead family that has been in the news recently. The Belstead family, sighing. The editor took the pipe out of his mouth, knocked it gently, then put the pipe into his mouth again, took a deep breath, and the white smoke escaped from the editor's nostrils and dissipated in the air. After thinking for a while, the editor looked at the young editor and said, "Use our snow sculpture to contact Mr. Bursted and ask him if he needs us to take care of Shane Bursted." Hearing this, the young editor was stunned for a moment, obviously not thinking about the reason why his catalog came so suddenly. Editor-in-Chief, we are the Golden Fleece, not scholars? A paper like this certainly needs a little more thought, okay? Looking at the words written on the letter in his hand, the editor-in-chief smiled, and then immediately said seriously to the editor. Immediately read typesetting, to be completed before going to print. Add this article about improving the forgetting potion, put it on the back burner position, emphasizing your identity as a freshman at Hogwarts. Looking at the serious expression on the young editor's face, the editor's mouth twitched slightly, and he really wanted to kick him again, but in the end the interviewer turned out to be the person he brought. The editor still explained seriously. Of course the college is the first one, but in addition to the academy, we also need to consider how to ensure the survival of the Golden Crucible. After handing the letter to the snow sculpture, Gavin picked up the teacup and took a sip, feeling relaxed and happy.
Opening the letter and looking at the pile of congratulatory letters that looked like congratulations but were actually inquiries and inspections, Gavin took out a pen, scrawled a few words on it, and said with a smile, "My mind is clear. If Shane Burstad's article is of high quality and makes a significant contribution to the wizarding world, we will publish it even if Mr. Burstad objects."
I see. Don't talk nonsense to me. Go to work quickly and contact Mr. Burnside immediately.
After receiving the reply, the young editor immediately handed the letter to the editor-in-chief.
The young editor nodded and said, I understand, but I still insist that Goldsmith should be a purely academic journal, but I understand your choice. Old Belstead is one of the people in Lish's network who is hard to talk to. He usually seems to be a secretive person. If something really happens to him, no one dares to say that he can be depressed. If such a person, it's just that he is his direct grandson. This grandson. Seeing the expression of his confidant, the editor couldn't hold back, slapped him on the leg and whispered. You Mutu, what is the truth behind these rumors? You don't know, and I don't know either. I don't know whether it was a coincidence or intentional, but on a rare day when the Golden Robe was being prepared for typesetting and printing, Gavin came to the Ministry of Magic to have tea with an old friend. After flying for a while, I finally found Gavin, who was drinking tea here on 5.2, and handed him a letter. Do you think Golden Crucible could survive without the support of the Magicians Guild and the funds they provide? The largest salary bonus in Europe, do you think it would all be in vain? After receiving the order from his editor-in-chief, the young editor immediately wrote a respectful letter and sent it with the Golden Crucible snow sculpture.
But at this point, to be honest, his article is just an article that claims to be published in Golden London. With or without this article, it will not have much impact on the development of the magic world.
We have to ask. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 117 The Face of the World. Shane, congratulations, you are the first place this year. 1 week after the exam, the results finally came out. With his absolute advantages in potions and transfiguration, Shane edged out Hermione and became the first in his grade in the final exams of the 4 colleges. Shane looked at Hermione standing in front of him. Her congratulations were heartfelt, but the resentment on her face was real and obvious.
At this time, it would be an insult to say something comforting to someone like Hermione, so Shane said to Hermione bluntly, I will wait for you at the end of second year, and we will fight again then.
Hearing these words, Hermione showed a clear desire to win on her face and declared, I will definitely defeat you next year and become the number 1 in my grade. Okay, I'll wait. Hermione turned and walked away, waiting to meet Harry and Ron not far away. Shane nodded to Harry and Ron, who greeted him, then turned and went to his Slytherin house lounge to meet Blaze. At this time, in the Slytherin lounge, many young wizards were celebrating Slytherin's 7th consecutive championship. Slytherin ranked first with 436 points, Ravenclaw ranked second with 409 points, Hufflepuff ranked third with 352 points, and Gryffindor ranked fourth with 296 points. Shane couldn't remember what the original scores of the 4 houses were, but in his opinion, the scores of Slytherin and Gryffindor must be much lower than the original scores. After all, when the school started that year, Shane, Malfoy and others started from Slytherin and Gryffindor. Slytherin lost 110 points, and Harry and Ron lost 40 points from Gryffindor. On the Gryffindor side, Shane heard that after the Halloween troll incident, Hermione helped Harry and the others get back a few points. On the Slytherin side, Shane made up for 50 points, making him a little richer. But Malfoy and the 3 of them also got back a few points. Fortunately, if Dumbledore wanted to give points to Harry and the others because of the story about the Wizard's Stone, then he would also have to give points to himself. With his own share of points, coupled with Slytherin's initial advantage, Shane felt that I'm still confident of winning the House Cup, but it's a pity that Malfoy's disadvantage is too small. Otherwise, if Slytherin wins Quidditch, it will be 7 consecutive championships. After 2,000 rounds of full light, they still lost. Are they still going to play? The sky was getting dark, and dinner time was almost here. The little Slytherin wizards all walked into the hall decorated with silver and green Slytherin style with red faces. They met the little wizards from other houses, and they all had expressions of tears and snot, especially when they met Gryffindor. They almost directly called them trash, which made the young wizards of the other 3 houses furious. Shane winked at Malfoy, who did not cheerfully provoke Harry. Shane resisted the urge to roll his eyes and destroy his personality and sat down at the Slytherin table with Blaise. Shane and Blaise now occupied the best seats in the center of the long Slytherin table. It's different now. They're different from when they first entered school. Their status and popularity are no longer low, but Shane and Bryce are still used to sitting on the sidelines. Although the seats at the university's long tables should be arranged according to classes, there are no strict regulations in this regard. Except for the opening dinner, most of the major colleges sit casually. Time passed by, and different professors sat at the long table in the auditorium one after another. Dumbledore was the last to arrive, tapping his goblet softly as he began his speech. It's been another year and it's great to see you all here, but before I get to taste the delicious food, I have to let you all hear my old man's platitudes. It's been an exciting year and your minds may be full, and our break will give you time to collect your thoughts and make space for the next school year.
The House Cups are now awarded. The specific results of each house are as follows. 4th place Gryffindor 296 points, 3rd place Hufflepuff 352 points, 2nd place Ravenclaw 409 points, 1st place Slytherin 436 points.
Shane sighed, lowered his head and stopped talking. At this time, Dumbledore looked back at the cheering Gryffindors and then at the small group of Gryffindor wizards surrounding Harry as their savior. He nodded with relief, realizing his purpose has been achieved. Hearing this, everyone in Slater 523 Lynn applauded again. Snape's faint smile also froze on his face. Mr. Neville Longbottom can still stand up in front of his friends. He is undoubtedly a brave man. I give Gryffindor 10 points.
Shane sighed thinking of this. Dumbledore looked at Shane and said, Mr. Shane Burstad, because you showed wit and firm courage in the face of an invincible enemy, I will add 50 points to Slytherin.
As soon as he finished speaking, deafening cheers erupted from the Slytherin side. Some people clapped their hands vigorously, and some stamped their feet on the ground. But Dumbledore spoke again. In the end, Harry Potter, with his fearless courage and extraordinary courage, discovered the truth of the mystery and protected the gem, so I give Harry Potter 0.100 points. Miss Hermione Granger, for your ability to remain calm and analyze the situation when facing Devil's Net and Flames, I award 50 points to Gryffindor. Shane listened to Dumbledore's words and silently made a calculation. Gryffindor now has 406 points. He vaguely remembered that Harry had to add 50 or 60 points. According to these 60 points, Gryffindor is 466 points, and if Slytherin added his points, he would have at least 486 points and still win the House Cup.
Slytherin's cheers stopped abruptly. After saying this, Dumbledore turned his head to Gryffindor. Under the uncertain gazes of everyone in Slytherin, he murmured to himself, Ron Weasley has won Hogwarts over the years. The most exciting game of chess gets 50 points for Gryffindor.
Shane looked at Dumbledore and clapped his hands gently, knowing clearly that this was not the end. Well, you old guy, letting Harry become the hero of Gryffindor is not a matter of face at all. It is a one-time addition of 100 points. Gryffindor's prejudice, Harry's prejudice is not too strong.
Fortunately, when the applause from the Slytherin side gradually subsided, Dumbledore spoke again. Very well, Slytherin children, but recent events must be taken into account, right?
Shane looked at Dumbledore, the corner of his mouth twitching slightly. According to the extra points, Slytherin's current score is 486 points and Gryffindor's is 506 points, so this year's Academy Cup champion is Gryffindor. Dumbledore's last words were already on his lips, but at this moment, a high-pitched eagle call sounded, and a snow eagle with wide wingspan and white body flew into the hall and landed on Shane. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 118 winning 7 consecutive championship titles. Snow sculpture? Wizengamot package for Mr. Shane? Severus, do you know what this is? Snape stood up, glanced at Dumbledore rather unhappily, and was in no mood to answer him. He walked out from behind the professor's desk and walked straight to Slytherin's desk. Why F2F? Seeing Snape's actions, Dumbledore was not surprised and stood up to follow Snape. The snow sculptures fly away immediately after delivering the package. Unlike Fukuru, these snow sculptures are faster and stronger. They do not need to rest for a long time and fly away immediately after delivering the package. Shane looked at the snow sculpture package. It was a flat rectangular box that seemed to contain a book. Opening the box, Shane took out the latest sample issue of Golden Creek. On the cover was a middle-aged magician brewing a magic potion, greeting Shane while brewing the magic potion. Shane didn't know the person he was talking to, but he roughly knew that the person he was talking to must be a well-known magician in the magic potion world, otherwise he would not be qualified to use this photo as the cover of Golden Creek. Additionally, the cover lists the titles, authors, and page numbers of a number of articles, all of which should be fairly well known and discussed a lot, with one exception, and that's Shane's own article. There is a line of small text in the lower left corner that reads the title of Shane's thesis, his name and the prefix, first year Slytherin at Hogwarts.
The book looks like it's for selling novelty items, but considering his grandfather was a member of the Wizards Conference, it's hard for Shane not to feel that this book has his grandfather's influence.
Of course, Shane is not the kind of person with mental misophobia. It is normal for him to gain some benefits for himself when the rules allow it. Shane does not think this behavior is a big problem. Shane put a journal sample in his hand, but he did not immediately take it in his hand to read it carefully. Instead, he took out a beautiful parchment certificate from the package, which contained official congratulations on Shane's submission and selection. Thanks. At the end is a palm-sized golden ticket with 30 gold galleons on it, which is a lot of money. After getting the golden ticket, Shane raised his head. He wanted to say something to Blaze, but suddenly found that the auditorium had become much quieter. He turned around and saw Shane standing behind him. Pooh, Dumbledore, and other professors. Several people came in one after another behind Dumbledore. Seeing the actions of Dumbledore and other professors, the young wizards around him also looked at Shane silently. Don't know what happened though. Something happened, but that didn't stop them from watching the fun. Shane, are you on the list? After review, the business. In response, Shane immediately handed Snape a diary sample and a work acceptance certificate. As for the golden ticket, Shane just stuffed it into his pocket and showed it to others without any meaning. Snape was holding the samples and evidence in the diary in his hand. Dumbledore and the professors around him could clearly see what Snape was holding. They couldn't see it when Snape was in the way, but now they can see it. Oh, my God. Professor Sprout, Hufflepuff's dean and herbology teacher, couldn't help but exclaim when he saw the golden robe and admission certificate in Snape's hand, as well as Shane's name on the certificate. Looked at Moen in surprise. Hogwarts has not had a female student's paper published in a top scientific journal for many years, and now, a young freshman wizard has broken this tradition. Snape looked at the diary and certificate in his hand, a hint of pride flashing across his face.
In his potion society, there are many children with extraordinary talents who can prepare complex potions at a young age and can recite the formulas of many rare potions from memory, but only Shane can do it when he is still in school.
Wrote the thesis that entered the Golden Crucible, and more importantly, Shane was definitely the youngest of these kids. Considering that he is only a freshman, he is the youngest.
Just when Snape was thinking about whether he should praise Shane, he suddenly felt Shane taking his robes.
Snape frowned slightly and looked at Shane, subconsciously feeling that Shane might be up to something again. Professor, do you think my research on the Golden Spinning Wheel is a contribution to Hogwarts? After all, the Golden Spinning Wheel has the name Hogwarts on it?
Although Shane said this very softly, the professors behind Snape still heard it. Strange expressions appeared on the faces of everyone present. Some people even glanced at Dumbledore but did not see it. The principal's face had tensed up, but he still had that kind and gentle expression.
Snape raised his eyebrows slightly, turned to Dumbledore and said, "The selection of the best journal of the Wizarding Association like the Golden Fleece should not be less important than a game of chess played by a certain Gryffindor, right?" As soon as Snape finished speaking, the Slytherins looked at Ron from Gryffindor. This contemptuous look made Ron blush, but he couldn't say anything. Dumbledore looked at Snape, still speaking softly and uncertainly. The game of chess played by Mr. Weasley, Severus, you should have seen it. The reason why Mr. Weasley was rewarded was not because he won a game of chess, simply because of the courage and sacrifice he showed. I think you, Severus, can understand, right? Dumbledore looked at Shane again and continued, of course, Mr. Belsted's achievements are undeniable. He spent many years breaking the impossibility of Hogwarts, and spent many years creating the history of Hogwarts, and his achievements in potions are also worthy of being remembered by Hogwarts. Therefore, Mr. Shane Belstead was awarded for his special contribution to Hogwarts, and was given an additional 50 points for Slytherin as an encouragement. Therefore, this year's Academy Cup was won by Slytherin. At the same time, Slytherin also ushered in the honor of 7 consecutive championships. Let us cheer for Slytherin's 7th consecutive championship. With the sweep of Dumbledore's right hand, green and silver fireworks exploded on the ceiling of the Great Hall. Countless silver and green light spots sprinkled from the top of the head, looking like snowflakes celebrating Slytherin's 7th consecutive championship. At the long tables of the 4 houses, the young wizards of Slytherin cheered loudly, unlike the silent Gryffindors and the less cheering Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs. The young wizards of Slytherin overcame many difficulties and almost went crazy. This is especially true for the 7th grade students. They looked at Shane with gratitude and joy, because they clearly knew that at least half of the credit for winning 7 consecutive championships belonged to Shane. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 119 Internal Meeting in the Magical World. 7 is a very magical and complete number. This is one of the reasons why the Slytherin team is so eager to win 7 consecutive championships. For the graduating 7th grade students, 7 consecutive championships means that they have won the Academy Cup every year there at Hogwarts. This is because more than 89% of wizards are born in Hogwarts. The magical world of Sea's Eagle Kingdom is undoubtedly a very valuable aura, which is undoubtedly a great help for the 7th grade students who have graduated and are about to enter the magical society. Of course, the 7th grade seniors also have a certain degree of gratitude to Shane. He helped them lose the game and helped them regain their 7th consecutive championship. The last dinner was over, and the young wizards from the 4 colleges left the hall one after another. Shane and Blaze followed the others to the Slytherin common room. If he slept one more night tonight, he could pack his luggage and leave Hogwarts on the Hogwarts Express tomorrow morning. But what was different from the others was that he might not be able to go home right away. Once the Hogwarts Express arrives at platform 9 3/4, Shane must go directly to Bowbottom in Romantic Country to spend the remaining month. In the Slytherin common room, before Shane could return to his room 953, the Slytherin Female Student Union president immediately found him. She had been looking for Shaw at the beginning of the term. "Shane, can we talk?" When Brace saw another person, he immediately said to Shane, "I'll go back first, and you'll find me when you come back." "Yes." Seeing Blaze walking to his room first, Shane looked at the Female Student Council president standing in front of him and asked, "Where are we going to talk?" "PLZ, follow me." Shane followed her straight to the back of the Slytherin common room. The Student Council president was standing in front of a stone door with a snake carved on it. As the Student Council president walked over, the snake on the stone door immediately began to swim like a living creature. He raised his head like an animal, looked at the person who was talking to him, and said in a cold and emotionless tone, "But your order." The most unpleasant thing facing Shane now is his cheap grandpa's target. There is no love without reason in this world. Shane doesn't believe that his stingy grandpa just wants to gain culture. Not to mention the stingy grandpa's problem, his uncle will definitely not let him go. Glory. There were 9 people sitting in the room, including 6 Slytherin class teachers. Except for Oliver Foley, they were all there. The other 4 Shane vaguely recognized were classmates from the 6th and 7th grades. They saw Shane come in at this time. All expressed a certain degree of friendliness, some smiled and said hello, and some invited Shane to sit down. With these thoughts, Shane looked around at the people in front of him and said with a smile, "I am very happy to join you. I hope you can teach me more in the future." Therefore, Shane needs his own strength, independence from his cheap grandfather, and now he has such a power relationship and power in front of him. After all, I am a Slytherin, so it doesn't matter. Besides, the articles I published were also the result of the dean's help. You have nothing to be grateful for. N. As soon as he finished speaking, Shane followed the other person into a rather luxurious room. There were various sofas and armchairs in the room. There was a silver-green carpet with the Slytherin family crest under his feet, and hangings on the wall. There are several paintings, some of the characters in the paintings are sleeping, and some have retreated into other paintings. As expected, as soon as the Female Student Union president finished speaking, Irina turned to Goroji. "Goroji, this time we discussed 2 ways to express our gratitude to you. The first one is that everyone has invested some shares in the store. Although the individual shares are not many, the advantage is that they are large, and you can get a lot of dividends every year. The second is that we jointly invite you to join us and become one of us. Become one of us and you will be equal to us in terms of rights and obligations." Shane looked at the others, mentally weighing the pros and cons. If it's just Shane himself, of course he doesn't care. He just needs to strengthen his strength. Generally speaking, Avada can be further away, but Shane also has parents and friends. He can't leave them behind, and of course he doesn't want his parents and family to follow him. Together he escapes from ordinary life. Since it was already June, the fireplace in the room was unlit, and wine and seasonal fruits were placed on the low tables beside the sofas and armchairs. "No, you don't understand." The student union president shook his head. "This matter has huge benefits for us. This kind of benefit is not something you can see casually, but it actually exists. The tangible and intangible benefits, in addition to the 4 people who have already confirmed their membership, the possibility that others can successfully join the Brotherhood has also been greatly increased. In the future, when we enter the magical world, do business, or even develop a sect, we will all get it." "More help, so you really gave us about." Shane sat down on the single sofa next to Samuel and Irina, looked at the others, and said, "I am honored to be invited here. I am very happy to meet you. You all invited me to come here. Don't know what this is for." "To be honest, I'm happy to. Let's get this over with. First of all, I want to thank you for helping us finally win our 7th consecutive championship. Before this, we all thought our winning streak would be because of Gryffindor. It ends with the savior, and if that were the case, then it would be shame rather than glory that awaits us now. Don't look at this guy Burrell, he hasn't done much this year. He looks like a forgetful Shane, but Shane knows very well that this guy must be holding back something good. Just because he suddenly lowered his profile and became no longer like him in Millicent. Shane could tell from his body that his bastard uncle Burrell must be harboring conspiracy and cunning. As soon as the password was given, the stone door slowly opened, revealing a gorgeous living room. The female student union president led Shane inside and said, "This is our lounge inside Slytherin. Only the monitor and a few other qualified people can come in. Most of the people here are also Slytherin brothers. Current or alternate members, such as Samuel and Irina, are very familiar to you. Shane looked at his interlocutor and did not speak immediately because he knew there would be more to come. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 120 The day of departure. The reason why this Slytherin Brotherhood Reserve student organization made an exception and admitted freshman Shane to join was firstly because of Shane's personal ability and influence, and secondly because of Shane's gratitude, because he has actually helped these people a lot. The third reason is because of the influence of the Belstead family.
Moreover, these people knew a lot about Shane and Malfoy before.
Gavin came to Hogwarts to talk about it and eliminated the impact. They also learned that Shane's status in the Belstead family was fundamental. It's not what they imagined, but if it were just that, it wouldn't make these people feel how important Shane's position is in the Belstead family. Until a 7th grade student returned from a walk and passed by Hogsmeade, he accidentally met Gavin and the Mill family, father and son. After contacting Jason and Shane, who had dueled with purebreds before, they naturally had some guesses and paid more and more attention to Shane. If there is a possibility of profit, it is worth investing. Shane knew exactly what these people were thinking, but he also needed to use this Slytherin student organization as a stepping stone to power, and he was happy to join them. Everyone held a brief welcome ceremony, chatted for a few words, drank some wine, and then dispersed, because tomorrow is graduation day, so it would be better to go to bed early. Shane and Samuel walked to the end of the line and looked at the 7th and 6th graders who had left first. Samuel said to Shane, "Shane, after the start of next semester, the 7th grade will officially end, and the 6th grade will advance to the 7th grade. They need to focus more on the exam." Shane said, "We need to work together when the exam comes. Keep order at home." Upon hearing this, Shane immediately realized that Samuel was reminding him and immediately laughed. Shane looked at Samuel and nodded. "I just came here. I will be a sophomore in high school next year. I still need to learn about the Potions Club and other things. If I need to make a decision, please ask 2 senior classmates to help me. You also need to guide me so that I don't make mistakes in some things." Irina looked at Shane, her eyes curved into 2 crescents. She looked at Shane and said happily and seriously, "Don't worry, Samuel and I still have 2 years left at Hogwarts. We will try our best to help you. There is no need for dialogue between smart people."
Just now, in what seemed like a polite conversation, the 3 of them had already finished discussing their cooperation in the next 2 years. Simply put, this means that for the next 2 years, Shane will unconditionally support Samuel and Irina, ensuring that they have 3 votes in the organization, and Samuel and Irina will do whatever they can to helping Shane, including helping him pave the way for himself to gain more voting rights in the organization, will also benefit Samuel and Irina. You must know that this unofficial organization composed of Slytherin Brotherhood students is composed of all students and can decide many things. Every year, the selection of class president must be conducted under the witness of this organization, and then there will be competitions or other competitions. And finally the people from this organization handed the list to Snape.
Shane plans to use this student organization to gradually reach out to the Slytherin Brotherhood behind it, and use the Slytherin Brotherhood to gradually seize his power. After returning to the room, Shane chatted with Bryce, arranged contact information for the holiday, and then prepared to wash up and go to bed.
Before going to bed, Shane checked Culkin and made sure there was no problem, then let Culkin sleep in his own nest.
It was already June, but Culkin was still very sleepy. Fortunately, this sleepiness was not that bad. This kind of sleepiness lasted for a day and a night. Every day, Culkin would wake up for a while, eat and drink, pester Shane and act coquettishly, and receive loving caresses. In the early morning, Shane was woken up by a soft sound outside the window. On the day of departure, everyone was more or less excited. "Today I didn't stay in bed as long as I hoped, but got up early.
Thank you for taking care of Bryce at school. Don't forget to come to my house when you have time during the holidays." After the Hogwarts Express stopped, Shane closed Gavin's notebook and walked off the train with Blaze. At a glance, he saw Blaze's mother, Mrs. Zabini, leading the way.
Shane made no secret of going to Bowbottom. Hearing this, Shane was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, "I don't understand French, but my grandfather can arrange for me to go there. There must be a way, otherwise I wouldn't go to Bowbattons to learn French." Unable to sleep, Shane simply got up and packed his things. "Okay, if you have time, of course. Do you know French?" "Well, you must be Shane, right?" The train set off, and the small group of wizards embarked on their journey home. At this moment, when he heard Bryce's words, he immediately nodded and said, "In a moment, I will take the Hogwarts Express and get off at platform 9 3/4. Then I will go to the people arranged by Grandpa to go to the romantic country. Espadon."
Brace followed his old mother away. Shane was stunned for a moment because he saw a man in his 30s, wearing black-rimmed glasses on his face, and his body was completely broken.
He was walking towards him with Jason. As soon as he saw them, Shane realized that they were the people who were going to take him to Bowbattons this time. "Shane, are you going to Boothpool when you get back soon?" Having said that, Shane vaguely remembered that Lucius Malfoy seemed to want to send Malfoy to Durmstrang Magic School. The magical community there is in Northern Europe, and the official language does not seem to be English.
Shane does not believe that Malfoy has been there since he was a child.
Knowing the language there, in his opinion, there must be a solution to the language problem there, which would allow Malfoy to quickly integrate into the local environment. If it does not affect his normal life, he can slowly learn the language. Just like on the way home, Hogwarts also has house elves to make sure things are packed, so after Shane finished packing, he let the light Culkin get into his sleeves and gave him a hug, and then opened the door. I found Bryce and went to the auditorium to have breakfast together. Shane looked at the sultry woman standing in front of him who exuded a mature and generous atmosphere, opened his arms and hugged her, and then said, "Hello, Mrs. Zabini, I am Zhang En."
0. Please give me flowers. Breakfast was over and it was time to leave school. One by one, the young wizards took the night train to leave Hogwarts Castle, headed for Hogsmeade Station, and boarded the Hogwarts Express one by one. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 121 Ministry of Magic. Hello, Master, my name is Aldrich Brown. From now on, I will be your personal butler, and this Mr. Jason Mill will be your personal servant. If you have any needs or orders, please ask us to serve you at any time.
Aldrich was a meticulous man. With his hair as neatly combed as Malfoy, his coat impeccably wrinkled, or his movements precise to the last detail, he proved his expertise. On the contrary, behind Aldrich stood Jason. His body was still a little stiff, and the expression on his face was not natural. He seemed to be in no hurry to follow Shane's footsteps.
Shane looked at them and nodded slightly. He didn't mean to make fun of Jason, he just addressed him as a stranger. He looked at Aldrich and asked, "Aldrich, how do we get to Beauxbatons?"
"Master, 210 is going to Bootbottom. We have to go to the Ministry of Magic first. Please follow me, Master." Looking at Aldrich and Johnson who were not curtsying in their hands, Shane asked, "Have I taken care of all my curtsies?" "Don't worry, young Master, the items I carry with me have been cast with traceless stretching spells, and all the travel gifts are already packed inside." "Okay, let's go." "Yes, Master." Looking at the red phone booth in front of him, Shane turned his head and looked around the street.
The buildings in all directions were dilapidated and inaccessible. The only place with human traces was a bar that was closed during the day. The surrounding walls were covered with messy graffiti. Some of the graffiti mixed 4 or 5 styles, and it was impossible to tell what was painted.
At the corner not far from the phone booth, there's a busy street. Aldrich first opened the door of the red phone booth and walked in, then turned to Shane and Jason and said, "Master, please come in, it's a bit crowded here, please bear with me first." Shane and Jason nodded and walked in one after another. Fortunately, Shane and Jason were not too old and had already completed their growth. Aldrich also had a relatively standard figure, tall and slender, otherwise the three of them would have to. It's really difficult to stay together.
Jason closed the phone booth door and stood behind it, as quiet as a chicken. Aldrich nodded to Jason, picked up the phone and pressed 5 numbers in succession on the phone button, 62,442. After waiting for about 2 breaths, a cold female voice came from the phone booth. That's right, the voice rang not in the receiver, but in the entire phone booth, as if the owner of the voice was sitting very close and said, "Welcome to the Ministry of Magic. Please tell me your name and the reason for your visit."
Shane Belstead Oro Dridge Brown Jason Mill. They're here about the release of the Portkey. Thank you all guests, please put your name tags on your clothes.
Basil is a slightly bald middle-aged wizard. When he first saw the 3 Shanes, he maintained a businesslike attitude. However, when Aldrich put a test paper in his hand in front of the other contestants, when he saw the coat of arms belonging to the Belstead family on the test paper, he immediately became excited.
Seeing their reactions, Aldrich whispered to Shane, "Master, the Belstead family gives a large sum of money to the Ministry of Magic every year. Unlike the Malfoy family, the Belstead family does not like to be the center of attention. So the outside world doesn't know much about the Belstead family, but people working in the Ministry of Magic can always get the news immediately. So unlike outside wizards, they basically know the influence of the Belstead family. Force."
After Aldrich looked around, he took Shane and Jason to continue walking along the small corridor near the lobby.
There were 20 gold bar elevators there. The 3 of them entered one of the less crowded elevators, and started from the 8th underground floor as the visitor entrance hall leads directly to the Magic Sports Department on the 6th underground floor, and to the Portkey office located in the center of this floor. Shane turned to look at Basil. After the 3 of them left, Basil was still at the door and said goodbye to him with a smile. Shane couldn't help but sigh at the benefits of privilege. It was no surprise that both wizards and civilians aspired to reach the top of the ladder. Guests of the Ministry of Magic, you need to go through security and register your wands. The security check is at the end of the main hall. Welcome to the Ministry of Magic. After introducing Shane, Aldrich led Shane and Jason past the Wizard Brothers fountain and straight to the security check and wand registration station. Basil handed a certificate to Shane and others with great pain, and then enthusiastically sent Jen N and others out of his office. This time, as the words of the cold female voice gradually faded away, the red phone booth suddenly descended slowly like an elevator, sinking into the ground and into darkness.
As the cold female voice gradually faded away, a repetitive ringing tone suddenly sounded from the slot of the phone coin acceptor in the kiosk. Aldrich took out 3 square silver coins, each of which had the names of 3 people written on them. Names, and among the names of these 3 people.
By the way, I almost forgot, Master, please accept this. This is a special order submitted to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement for our expedition to allow the use of magic. With this, as long as we do not use too evil black magic, and no unforgivable spells, the young master can use magic as much as he wants during the holidays. Hello, Mr. Basso, we are here to deal with this situation.
Accompanied by a monotonous and sharp sound of metal friction, more than a minute later, the phone booth finally came to a shining hall.
There was a peacock blue ceiling with ever-changing golden symbols on the ceiling. You can see it here. There were dark wooden floors and a large number of fireplaces on the walls on both sides. Magicians came out one after another with streams of green flames. There were also many magicians waiting for a group of people preparing to leave the fireplace. There are also many phalanxes of wizards waiting, ready to leave from the fireplace. It turns out these are Buster people. Please tell me what help you need.
After a rough look, the matter is very simple. I will contact Romance 5.0 Romance Country immediately.
You only need to wait at the door for a while. After the communication between the two parties is completed, you can rush there right away. The security check and wand registration were completed quickly, especially when the staff recognized Shane's last name. Their attitude was much more relaxed, and the work was quick and fast. After listening to Aldrich's words, Shane nodded slightly and said nothing more. After Shane and the three of them pinned their badges on their clothes, the cold female voice came again. Master, the people on both sides are employees or related personnel of the Ministry of Magic. They use the staff channel. We are tourists, so we have to use the guest channel. Otherwise, it will be much more convenient and less troublesome.
Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 122 Heartfelt Pleasure. Aldrich handed him a black round badge with a stick on it and a sentence engraved on the stick.
Not only Shane, but also Jason. Oro Delic took the badge from Jason and handed it to him. Can I do magic with him on vacation? Aldrich nodded and said, Yes, Master, this badge can identify the tracking lines on your body and make it look very professional. When you use magic, the Ministry of Magic's corresponding procedures will block your magic reaction. They won't know what magic you use until they examine your wand. Shane turned his head and looked at Aldrich. In his opinion, the second half of Aldrich's words always seemed to imply something. Smiling, Shane did not continue to ask, but changed the subject and said, Aldrich, that special order is not easy to get, is it?
Of course not. Aldrich still had a standard 07 smile on his face. He shook his head slightly and said, Master, you may regard this special arrangement as a privilege, but in fact, the Ministry of Magic is an ironclad rule that underage wizards are not allowed to use wands during holidays.
But there are also people who come from pure blood families or magic families. They have grown up in a magical environment. If they do not use magic in daily life, life will become very troublesome. In addition, these people's families they have some influence in the magical world, which makes the magical world they discover open.
If these children of pure blood families or magical families use magic at home, or use some small magic in places where there are no muggles, they will not be warned by the Ministry of Magic.
As the mouth opens, a special order gradually emerges. Shane looked at the badge in his hand, grinned, and said softly, This gadget is more of a privilege than a special order. This gadget is more of a privilege than a special order.
My little master is worthy of being someone that even my master often praises. This sentence alone is enough to illustrate the nature of the special command I have been taught.
Jason looked at Aldrich with a puzzled look. Is this licking? Shane looked at Aldrich. He used to hate dog licking, but when the object of the licking became him, Shane suddenly felt that dog licking was not useless. At least it could bring him hearty pleasure, which was good. The key to the romantic kingdom was quickly delivered on a tray by a young employee of the Ministry of Magic. At this time, Basil himself ran in and said to Shane and the three of them quite enthusiastically, Please put your hand on this fork. Of course, this fork is very small, one finger is enough. Aldrich and Jason put their fingers on the forks one after another, and Shane stretched out his index finger and pressed it on the slightly rusty tines. Seeing the actions of the three people, Basil immediately showed a warm smile and said, Okay, everyone, please be prepared, Shane felt his feet leave the ground instantly, his fingers seemed to be stuck to the fork, and his body continued to fly forward at an extremely fast speed. When Shane's feet touched the ground again, he felt his knees weaken and he almost fell to the ground.
Fortunately, Aldrich reached out and held Shane down in time, preventing him from actually kneeling on the ground. After breathing a little sigh of relief, he quickly returned to normal.
On the other hand, Aldrich didn't even think of helping Jason. After Jason landed, he fell flat on his back and was still some distance away from the ground. 11 and 8, from the Ministry of Magic of Eagle Country. This sentence was said in French. Shane stood up from the ground, looked around the wide hall where he was, and looked at some things written in French on the nearby wall, and realized that he had to come to the romantic Ministry of Magic.
Master, please put this cold into your ears. Shane looked at the thing in Aldrich's hand, which was 2 silver metal beans. If he looked carefully, there seemed to be many densely packed small hieroglyphics on the surface of the beans, which were composed of many different languages, including English, French, German, Russian, and even there's Chinese, and even more other languages that Shane doesn't even recognize.
Is it a magic item that can solve language problems? As expected of the young master, this is exactly what he wants.
This is called a transport bean. It is a very difficult magic item to make, so the quantity is very rare.
There are only 7 sets in the bested family. This time it is because the young master is going to Butterbottom. So I transferred a set. Looking at the set of 2 transfer beans in Aldrich's hand, Shane took off one and asked, "What will happen to you if I use this thing?" "Thank you, Mr. Little, for thinking about us, but we don't need this. I was taught languages when I was a personal butler, so French is not difficult for me, and Jason, his mother is a romantic, so I speak French." Jensen said these words in French. Shane looked at Jason, then at Aldrich, and sighed. This cheap grandfather is so caring and attentive. Shane felt as if he really regarded himself as his grandson. Oh my god, why does 437 feel a bit weird? What do I do with them?
One in the ear, one on each side. One in the mouth, pressed under the tongue. At this point, Aldrich hesitated and said again, "Of course, they are all clean, free of dust and harmful substances. Substances, so you can put them in your mouth with confidence, master." Shane glanced at Aldrich. He knew what his last words meant, so he shook his head. "Aldrich, I'm not that pretentious. Don't be so petty in the future." "Master, you have an extraordinary bearing, you are straightforward and free, and your subordinates understand everything." He put the beans he was holding into his right ear, picked another one, put it into his mouth, and pressed it on his tongue. When Shane closed his mouth, he immediately felt 2 chills rising from his right ear and mouth. Soon, these 2 chills came together and spread throughout Shane's head. At this time, Shane opened his mouth, stretched his ears, and found that the 2 translated beans were gone. At the same time, the conversation outside the hall that he had not understood just now was now like his native language, allowing him to fully understand it, meaning. Squeezing his throat gently, the standard Romantic Kingdom tongue came out of Yuan En's mouth. This stuff is interesting. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 123 Bobottom School of Magic. The 3 of them walked out of the gate of the Romantic Ministry of Magic. Under Aldrich's guidance, they walked to a building under construction next to the Romantic Ministry of Magic. When Shane walked in, he found that this was actually a building dedicated to the warehouse prepared by the wizard as similar to a bus station. Some use brooms, some use flying carpets, and many use horses and other magical animals. The magician who flies out from here will automatically cast illusions to cover his whereabouts and prevent being discovered by ordinary people. Aldrich led Shane to a huge carriage. In front of the carriage stood 2 elephant-sized horses, with golden bodies, silver manes, and red eyes. They were a special breed of horses. Pulling the carriage was Booth. Bowden teachers and students travel to and from Bobottom daily. "Hello, we are the Belstead family." Before Aldrich could finish speaking, the pink-nosed wizard put their lips together and nodded. "I know you, I'm here to find you. Get in the car quickly, I'll feed the horse some single malt whiskey, and then let's hit the road." After saying that, the rosacea wizard took out a huge wine barrel from the carriage and placed it in front of the talisman. Then he fed the 2 talismans alternately to drink the pure malt whiskey in it. From time to time, he also took a big sip himself, which showed that he had rosacea. The nose is there for a reason. Looking at the lucky horse, Shane asked Oroderic thoughtfully, "Aldrich, what do you think the lucky horse ate before the invention of single malt whiskey? The history of the appearance of the lucky horse is longer than that of single malt whiskey. Is it close?" This time, Aldrich was really stunned. He was thinking but had no relevant knowledge in his mind. "I'm sorry, Master, I don't know the answer to this question." "Actually, I'm just asking, don't take it too seriously." Looking at the essence through the phenomenon, the young master's thoughts are easy to accept. The 3 of them all got on the carriage. The carriage was quite luxurious, and the space inside was much larger than expected. Apparently, the carriage had been stretched without trace, making it larger and freer. Looking at the carriage, Shane asked Aldrich, "Aldrich, do you know the spell of leaving the hospital without a trace?" "Master, I know how to do it. If Master wants to learn, I can." "Oh, let's find a time to duel." Of course, on this festive day, there were not so many spectators on the central stage and the hall was not crowded. Bar Garcia is a boy, thin, tall, and plain-looking. Judging from his clothes and appearance, people would guess that he is a wizard from a civilian family. But if Professor Maupassant specially introduced him, people would think that he is a wizard. Quite a distinguished person. Professor Maupassant looked at Shane, who quickly came to his senses, couldn't help but nodded secretly, and then said to Shane, "Judging from the time, you probably haven't had lunch yet. Why not go to Bobottom Auditorium? Come and taste the specialties." The carriage passed through the clouds and mist surrounding Bobottom School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and happened to land at the carriage stop behind the manor. At this time, the teacher and 2 students from Bobottom Magic School were already waiting here. Bobottom Magic School is located in the Pyrenees Mountains in the southern part of the Romantic Kingdom. It is a stunning and magnificent manor. The surrounding vast meadows and mountains are all created through magic. It is said that most of this vast land was sponsored by the alchemist Flammel and his wife, because this is where they spent their time studying at Bobottom School of Magic. Shane once imagined Bobottom's School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He thought the Bobottom School of Witchcraft and Wizardry he imagined was very majestic, but when he saw the real Bobottom School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, he was still impressed by its majesty. As for Fleur Delacour, although Shane doesn't know her very well, she is certainly no stranger to her. It has to be said that, Just like in the original work, Shane was more or less shocked when he saw Fleur Delacour's ultimate beauty and alluring appearance, but after the shock, Shane quickly recovered and greeted them both politely as acquaintances.
The corridors of Beauxbaton's manor are very wide and the floors are very high. The corridors seem to be getting smaller and smaller. Beauxbaton's hall is different from Hogwarts' Great Hall because Beauxbaton's manor is not divided into different houses. Beauxbaton's auditorium has only one round table, and the center of the auditorium is empty, leaving a stage for usual song and dance performances. Then all trouble Professor Maupassant. Seeing Shane's humble attitude, Professor Maupassant's face became much prettier and his smile became more and more sincere.
He moved out of the way, introduced the two students behind Shane and said, "These two are the ones I am personally very optimistic about.
Students, this is Bar Garcia, who will be in 6th grade when school starts, and this is Fleur Delacour, who will be in 5th grade when school starts." Sitting at the round table, Professor Maupassant was introducing dishes such as fish soup and milk jelly to Shane. Shane tasted it and found that it was indeed very delicious, at least a little better than the food at Hogwarts. It doesn't matter. I'm just here to learn about Beauxbaton's history and some professional courses that are different from Hogwarts. Self-study should be enough.
You can call me Professor Morpheus. In the next month, I will be responsible for your life and study at Beauxbaton. Since most students have already gone on vacation, there are not many left, and many professors have also left the school. You can only teach yourself.
It's okay, let's go, de nuevo how. When he stepped off the carriage, his interlocutor immediately came up to him. Looking at Professor Bootbottom of the School of Magic who was walking towards him, Shane stepped forward, took the initiative to shake hands with his interlocutor and said, "Hello, it's Shane Burst. I'll be looking out for you and the professors at Bootbottom in the next month." While Shane and Professor Maupassant were eating with gusto, a group of Beauxbaton students rushed in noisily from outside the auditorium, which immediately ruined the atmosphere where the guests and hosts were sitting. There is a huge manor standing among the mountains. The manor is surrounded by a wide and boundless grassland. Many ordinary pig horses and roan horses are galloping on the grass. From time to time, a group of pig horses fly out from the grass and circle around the grass. The manor of Turboton Magic School made a circle and made a huge roar. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 124 Beauxbaton Library. Due to the sudden noise and chaos, Professor Maupassant's face immediately became ferocious.
Maupassant himself was a professor who valued rules and etiquette. It was common to criticize and even punish the bastards at Beauxbaton's School of Witchcraft and Wizardry for such things, but today he wanted to show Shane the order and solemnity of Beauxbaton's.
As a result, while enjoying lunch, these guys suddenly broke in and disturbed the situation, not to mention the anger in Professor Maupassant's heart.
Professor Maupassant walked directly in front of them and shouted, "What are you doing? Do you still have any rules? The school understands you and allows you to stay for vacation, just to let you play Quidditch in the school and make noise.
Everyone, go out. I will read a 1,000-word review tomorrow. Anyone who refuses to submit will leave the school and come back when school starts." After being reprimanded by Maupassant, the students who stayed in the school left immediately. Even if they were not convinced, they did not dare to show it, because Sao Yutai really had the ability to make them leave. When they left the auditorium, all the boys in the group had ugly faces. They did not expect that all Maupassant and 353 more than 10,000 Beauxbaton students would be in the auditorium after lunch, and they did not expect that they would go crazy this time. It will be such a big hit.
I just saw that there were several strangers at the table where Maupassant was sitting. Does anyone know who this person is? He was sitting with Maupassant eating together.
Everyone looked at me, and I looked at you, but I couldn't tell why. However, someone soon said thoughtfully, "I suddenly remembered that I heard someone said that during the holidays at Beauxbaton, a person from Hogwarts came here to communicate for a month. Now isn't this person from Hogwarts the same person?"
I'm afraid he is the reason why Morpheus is still in the hall. If it weren't for this guy, Morpheus wouldn't come to harass us. If I have the chance, I would like to see what this guy from Hogwarts is capable of.
After dinner, Maupassant left. After all, he was a professor at Beauxbaton's and personally received and entertained Shane, and all this was for the Bursted, AHCB, family. It has to be said that although the Bursted family was romantically involved, the country has a bad reputation, but they enjoy considerable influence, otherwise it would be impossible to send Gen N to Beauxbaton's. Despite leaving, Maupassant asked Bar and Fleur to show the three of them around Beauxbaton and take them to the historic hotel. The dormitory is spacious and can accommodate 3 people. After Belle and Flora left Butterbottom's map and pass, they left together with an excuse. It seemed that they didn't want to communicate with Shane and the others. Looking at the 2 people leaving, Shane smiled and said, "It seems that the Beauxbaton students don't welcome us. Many people in this world are short-sighted, and they naturally cannot realize the superiority of the young master." After listening to Aldrich's words, Shane smiled. He didn't want to admit that he had been licked. He just picked up the things that Bar and Fleur left when they left and looked at them. Then he said to Aldrich and Jason, "Let's take a moment. Take a rest and go directly to the Beauxbaton's library. A month is not long, and since you are here, you should naturally express yourself." The Beauxbaton Library is an independent building in the sunny south of the Beauxbaton Manor.
It is connected to the Bowbottom Manor from the outside, but to get to the library from the Bowbottom Manor, you must pass through Quidditch Stadium and Bowbottom Gardens.
There are 5 floors in Butterbottom's library, and each floor has its own restrictions. Anyone can read the books on the first floor, students and professors above 5th grade can read the books on the second floor, and the books on the third floor can be read by everyone. Students must apply and get the recommendation of professors before they can read it. Only professors can read the 4th level books. Students must get the recommendation of professors before they can read the books on the 5th level. Even the professors are not allowed to read it. They say that the books inside are very dangerous and top secret. Few people know what is in it. Gavin gave Shane an exchange privilege, allowing him to enter the 3rd floor of the library, but Shane could only browse the books on the 3rd floor on the spot and could not take them out or make rubbings. The books on the 1st and 2nd floors could be taken out until Shane left booth. Returned immediately after Patton. Taking Aldrich and Jason straight to the library, Shane did not go directly to the 3rd floor, but started searching on the 1st floor. He mainly looked through books on potions and transfiguration. These 2 subjects were what Shane was best at, but when Shane started looking through the collection of books, he suddenly discovered that there were many books in the Bowbottom library collection.
Most of them are books related to alchemy. There are very few such books at Hogwarts, and the subject of alchemy does not exist at Hogwarts at all.
Most of the books on the 1st floor are basic, regardless of whether they are from magic schools. These books are very common, so Shane only selected a few books on magic potions and transfiguration. Other than that, Shane also selected a lot of alchemy books and sat in the corner by the window on the 1st floor to read. Therefore, he could only sit by the window and watch boredly as the Bowbottom students practiced on the Quidditch field outside. Meanwhile, Fleur Delacour was sitting in her bachelor's quarters, enjoying afternoon tea quietly. During the holidays, she would come to school in the afternoon to handle affairs or study in the library. In the afternoon, she would drink tea on time and read the best magazines. Halfway through drinking black tea at Farong's house, a female elf suddenly appeared. She bowed to Farong first, then put 6 magazines on Farong's desk, and then left quickly without saying a word. Fleur flipped through the magazines one after another. She turned her attention to the latest issue of the Magic Potion magazine, The Golden Robe, and saw one of the many titles on the cover at a glance. Shane Belstead, Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 125 Alchemy.
Mr. Marlowe, what do you think of what I just said? In the secluded room, Burrell held a glass of red wine and quietly waited for the answer from the man sitting opposite him. A middle-aged man sitting opposite Burrell, with inch-long short hair and several flame-like scars on his left face, looked at Burrell and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Mr.
Burrell, you must know very well how much your father, old Bertold, loves that squib's son. It would be great if I killed him without being discovered. When I am discovered, you will be fine, but maybe won't.
I didn't know the power of your Belstead family before, but after following you for so long, I know very well that you have considerable power in many foreign countries. I want to escape to a place where your Belstead family has no tentacles and not easy.
I can send you to South Africa. Africa and the Dragon Kingdom are places that our family has never been exposed to. The Dragon Kingdom is far away, and there is no need for Africa. South Africa is also a fairly developed country, and the magic world there is also very prosperous. You can go there live better." After a long silence, Marlowe spoke again. "I can promise you, but the reward must be doubled."
Looking at Marlowe, Burrell said with a smile, "I thought that you, who once followed the Dark Lord, would be able to solve such a trivial matter easily. It turns out that you have been bargaining for so long."
Marlowe ignored Burrell's ridicule. He looked at his interlocutor and said, "Although I once followed the Dark Lord, I was just a follower of one of his Death Eaters. I am not even qualified to mark the Black Mark. Nevertheless, you don't have to regard me as a loyal follower of the Dark Lord. I am just an ordinary wizard who wants to live a better life. Who has the power? I'll do it for whoever has galleons, that's all." Burrell nodded, not sure if it was okay, and didn't say anything more.
He just agreed to Marlowe's conditions. "Yes, as long as you kill this Shane Belstead, then I can give you whatever you want."
He is now in Bowbottom, romantic country. I will organize people to get him out of Bowbottom, and then everything will be left to you. Yes, I hope you can keep your promise when the time comes. Don't worry, I have so many people under me, even if it is to let them work for me with peace of mind in the future, I will not break the contract. Unlike the Hogwarts library, Bowbottom completely separated the functions of the library and study room and established an independent library and study room. Bar walked into the study and found Farol reading a book and walked over and asked, "Farol, what are you reading?" Bar and Fleur met Shane together with Maupassant, and the two naturally established a very good relationship. Perhaps because of inferiority, perhaps because of self-knowledge, Bar was one of the few men who had not had any lust for Fleur. This was one of the reasons why Fleur was able to make good friends with him. Flora was born into a poor family, but she was self-respecting and self-motivated. She was always very fond of such men. Lola glanced at Bar sitting in front of her, flashed the magazine in her hand, and let Bar see the title on the cover of the magazine clearly. Like Flora, he was also startled when he saw the familiar name on the title. He said in disbelief, "The Chong-en Belstead we welcome? He can actually be on The Golden Crucible? Publish an article? There shouldn't be any problem, right?" Aren't these the same names? As soon as his words came out, Bell shook his head repeatedly and said, No, no, the title says it's Shane Burstead of Slytherin at Hogwarts, so it must be him. I remember that this Shane Belstead had just finished his first year at Hogwarts, and it was amazing that such a kid could publish an article in the Goldstream. Amazing. Do you like to have a look? Bar glanced at the golden crucible handed over by Lola, and was about to take it, but stopped and asked, What about you? As for the content related to alchemical spells in the book, Shane still doesn't quite understand some parts. This is why Shane has never started learning the ancient magic language. He feels that he may need to learn the ancient magic language first. Sunset Shane closed the book, looked at Jason who had been sleeping for who knows how long, stood up and stretched slightly, and then said to Aldrich, Aldrich, let's go eat, I'm a little hungry. Walking between the garden and the Quidditch pitch, Shane was still thinking about the basic alchemy book he just saw. It has to be said that compared with subjects such as potions and transfiguration, the basic alchemy book is at least 2 levels more difficult. Shane spent it took me a whole day to understand half of it. Master, you have read so many books, so you are naturally hungry. Let's go to the hall to have lunch. This young gentleman is hungry and is going to eat now. You are welcome, thanks. All in all, it's a really great idea and I even hope to get to know him better. 0. Please give me flowers. I see, Shane doesn't know that the latest issue of Golden Stream, just released today, has ignited him to some extent. Although many Hogwarts students know this, they who have read the latest issue of Golden Stream, as well as his skeptical family members, they were still shocked by the name belonging to Shane on the cover of Golden Brook. I think so too, but it's not that simple. You see, there are 2 more ingredients in his formula, which must be matched with this special technology. In fact, this formula can be said to save time and effort, and the cost is relatively high. Although the extra cost is nothing and is completely acceptable compared to the production time, but if it is added to other magic potions, it may not be the case. As soon as he finished speaking, Aldrich reached out and patted the table gently. Jason, who had been sleeping restlessly, immediately woke up and looked at Shane and Aldrich who had already stood up. I've finished reading his paper. I can read something else first. Aldrich stepped forward, packed up the books on the table, then stood next to Shane, following him towards the library exit, one body faster than Jensen. Aren't you watching? 0. After taking the golden crucible, Bar raised his head and looked at it. A shocked expression gradually appeared on his face, and said, Modifying the formula of the forgotten potion is nothing, but some of the techniques here are something I have never seen before. If something can be used in other potion formulas, wouldn't that mean it's universal? Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 126 Pitching. A sudden voice interrupted Shane's thoughts. He turned his head and looked in the direction where the sound came from, and saw Aldrich standing beside him expressionlessly, holding the wand tightly in his hand, and a red ghost flying ball bounced gently under his feet. On the Quidditch pitch not far away, a group of Bowbottom students riding broomsticks were laughing, their faces full of gloating. Seeing this scene, Shane naturally realized what had just happened. In any case, Bowbottom students deliberately provoked trouble, but Aldrich did not go to them to settle accounts. Instead, he looked at Shane first and asked anxiously, Master, are you okay? Shane shook his head and said to Aldrich, I'm fine. I just don't understand why these people are attacking me. I shouldn't hurt them. Is it because I'm an outsider? The mere reason to look at him differently was enough for these half-grown children to point the finger at him, so Shane's words were more of a joke than a genuine inquiry about the reason. Aldrich looked at the Boothbottom students in the distance and suddenly remembered something. He nodded uncertainly and whispered to Shane, Young teacher, these 697 people must have broken into the auditorium at noon. Then the group of people who were punished by Professor Maupassant may be blamed for the punishment they received in their middle age because of you, the young teacher. After listening to Aldrich's words, Shane nodded silently, and after being reminded, he remembered. He sighed helplessly. This was really inhumane. Hey Hogwarts, please throw us a ball, and if you can't throw it, tell us and we'll pick it up ourselves. As soon as these words came out, the students burst into laughter again. Shane looked at them and sighed again. He originally wanted to stay quietly in Bowbattons for a month, read books, learn new skills, and then come back to reunite with his parents, but those little bastards insisted on playing with him. In this case, he let them know why the flowers are so red. Aldrich, give me the ball, Master, are you going? They want the ball, we give it to them. After listening to Shane's words, Aldrich said nothing. Jason said angrily, Master Shi, is this the end of it? Are we really going to give the football school to them like this? Looking at Jason again, during this period of time, Jason always looked wandering and confused. Shane didn't care about him. He followed him anyway, and he didn't have to pay for meals. At this time, because of those Bowbottom, Jason's reaction to the students' provocation changed somewhat, and he sided with the values of those who shared the same hatred, but this can be considered an improvement. Shane sneered and took the ghost ball handed to him by Aldrich and said to Jason, Of course I have to give the ball back to them, but if they can't catch it themselves, it's not my problem, is it? After hearing this, Shane sped up his pace slightly, tightened his muscles all over his body, and his strength suddenly increased. He threw the ghost flying ball in his palm with one hand towards the person who yelled the loudest. There was a boom, and the quaffle in Shane's hand flew out instantly. Button Burden's classmates on the side let out a scream, and then they saw that the most lively person just took the quaffle.
Hitting the broomstick under his butt, the quaffle immediately split into two halves, and fell down from a medium height together with its owner.
Shane grinned and led Aldrich and the disbelieving Jason out of the Quidditch pitch unhappily and into the hall to prepare for the afternoon dinner. As for the loud shouts coming from the Quidditch pitch behind him, Shane automatically ignored them. Sitting in the Bobaton's auditorium, Shane tried many special skills. Jason kept looking at Shane. He didn't understand how Shane could have such great strength.
He was not stupid. Of course he could see that the ball Shane threw just now, if it hits him right in the face, even if his head is not broken, he will basically lose half his life.
If someone says that Shane is a giant monster in human skin, he will definitely believe it. If someone said Shane was a troll in human skin, he would definitely believe it. Like Jason, Aldrich was also very curious about where the little master's power came from, but unlike Jason, although he was curious, he did not assume or question anything. Before, when Gavin suggested that Aldrich follow Shane, Gavin made it clear that in the future, Shane should actually be the main direction. Even if one day Shane betrays the Bursted family, Aldrich will follow Shane, so Aldrich Derrick was very curious about the young master's secret, but he did not inquire.
This was the young master's professional ethics, and the words to comfort the young master's body and mind were completely instinctive.
After eating and drinking, Shane sat at the table to eat dessert. At this time, Fleur and Bar came to Shane again. "Can I sit here?" Looking at the golden robe in Fleur's hand, Shane immediately understood why the two came to him. He nodded slightly and said, "I am Bobbottom, I am the guest, you are the host, please sit down." Fleur and Bar smiled, sat down at the table naturally, and started chatting with Shane. "Shane, can I call you that?" Seeing Shane nod, Fleur continued. "The two of us saw your article in Golden Crucible, and would like to ask you some questions. Is it convenient for you?" "Of course, if there are any questions, I'll know everything I need to know." "Thank you very much. The most important thing is that you used two brand new material processing methods. We want to know whether these two methods are universal and whether they can be used for other magic potions." After listening to Fleur and Bar's questions, Shane immediately realized that their achievements in magic potion were also quite high.
He adjusted his thinking slightly, listened carefully to Fleur and Bar's questions, and then answered them seriously.
After a while, seconds passed until there were only two of them in the audience, and there were not so many people in the audience at first. The group stopped discussing. Not only Flora and Bar, but also Shane also received awards. In the process of answering the two people's questions, Shane re-examined his thesis and reinterpreted it from the perspective of Flora and Bar. Fleur and Bar were the first to say goodbye and leave. Shane drank a few glasses of wine, got up, and left the room with Oro Derrick and Jason. But just as they were leaving the hall, someone called him. "Are you the one from Hogwarts?" Shane turned to look at the other person. He was a boy of 16 or 17 years old, about 5th or 6th grade. Shane recognized him. When he passed by the Quidditch pitch just now, that guy had been there wandering around the stadium. It seemed like he must be in the same group as those guys playing Quidditch. "Are you with those kids playing Quidditch, children?" The visitor's eyes slightly raised, and he said in an extremely dissatisfied tone, "We are not children.
But the reason and the way you followed me are really not suitable for adults.
Since Professor Maupassant punished you for making loud noises and disturbing the peace, you did not dare to approach Professor Maupassant, so you approached me, an outsider present, and you deliberately hit me with a ball as I walked across the Quidditch pitch. Approached me. Instead of hitting me, I smashed the guy's broomstick with the ball, and then you came here and waited for me, and waited a long time, because you didn't dare to disturb me when Flora and Bar were around. Let me guess what you were waiting for. I guess I'm taking revenge on myself for what happened this afternoon. As for the method of revenge, I don't know much about Bowbottom's school rules, but I think Bowbottom does not allow private duels at will, so you may ask me to duel, and I think Bowbottom has rules about dueling. You want to give me a duel lesson, make me look embarrassed, and then satisfy your childish pride. I guess that's what you're going to do, right?" After a series of words, Shane left the other party speechless. He opened his mouth many times to say something, but the words never came out. Every intention, every thought, and even the motivation in his heart were blocked. The other party spoke so clearly that he even had some doubts as to whether Shane was secretly trying to influence the royal family.
You, the guest pressed their lips together tightly.
For a while, his tongue turned over and over again in his mind and said it many times. Finally, he opened his mouth again and said contemptuously, "You have said so much, it is nothing more than. You want to give up our duel 4.3, but in fact, you are just afraid of us. What you are afraid of is. No, contrary to what you said, I promised to fight you. Just kidding. How could I refuse the duel that came to me, because I haven't had time to test how strong I am after messing around with the gift package for so many days. Reject? This is a stupid refusal." Shane was as passionate as a mad dog on the inside, but calm and composed on the outside. He looked at his interlocutor and continued to ask, "When will the duel take place?"
The man looked at Shane, his mood was a little incoherent.
He didn't know why, but he felt that the man was more eager to duel than he was. How could a freshman at Hogwarts who had just entered the 2nd grade be more eager than he was in the 5th grade? What about the duel? This kid from Hogwarts should be okay, right? Do you really agree to the duel? We don't have time. When and where will the duel take place? I frowned slightly. Why are these guys from Bootbottom swearing at each other while dueling at the same time?
This is the dueling room in the basement at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning that you mentioned.
Alright, I got it. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 127 Pure Magic Showdown. Shane waved and left without looking back. Watching Shane leave the trio, he always felt that he had been invited to a duel. Obviously, he successfully agreed to the duel and found an opportunity for himself and his friends to feel proud, but what should he do with the small sense of accomplishment in his heart? After returning to the dormitory, Shane tidied himself up a little and changed into home clothes. Then he sat down at the desk and took out a borrowed book, ready to continue reading for a while.
As a result, after watching for a while, Shane found Aldrich standing not far from him. Although he was not in the way, Aldrich usually found something to do alone, either reading a book or writing a diary. If he continued like this standing next to him, it was obvious that something was about to happen. Putting down the quill, Shane turned to Aldrich and said, "Aldrich, what do you want to say?" "Master, do you really want to duel tomorrow?" "Of course, I will definitely go to the appointment tomorrow." Shane knew what Aldrich was worried about, so he continued. "Aldrich, you just followed me. There are some things that you may not be very clear about. You will understand everything tomorrow." After hearing what Shane said, Aldrich said nothing more. No matter what he thought, since Shane had made up his mind, Aldrich said nothing more. This is what a trusted manager said. Professionalism. Shane woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning and yawned. He was too busy reading yesterday, and there was a duel at 10 o'clock today, so Shane just got up an hour late to wash up and eat before the duel. At 9:40, Shane, Oro, and Jason got up to the first floor of Bootbottom Manor. As soon as they went down the stairs, someone came to guide Shane to the duel room. Apparently, the duel room was organized by the same person yesterday. Instead, Jensen trusted Shane more than Aldrich. After all, as a member of Slytherin, Jason is very aware of Shane's dueling record in Slytherin over the past year. From the beginning, everyone in Slytherin disliked him, and then he gained the status that Shane earned back step by step. Yes, it was also won in duels. I heard before that Shane and the Savior teamed up to stop Quirrell's plan to steal the Philosopher's Stone. Although many people think that Quirrell is very useless and rubbish, a person who can plan to steal the Philosopher's Stone can also be very bad. Shane and the Savior can work together to stop Quirrell. Luo, dealing with these bud guys is not a problem at all. Bootbottom's dueling chamber is rectangular, with a thin rectangular platform raised above the ground in the center. Both parties must stand on the left and right ends of the platform before the duel can begin. When Shane came to the duel room, he was surprised to find that many people had gathered, not only people who had participated in Quidditch before, but also other students who stayed at Bootbottom. Shane even saw Bayer. When Bear found Shane looking at him, he stretched out his hand to say hello to Shane. Seeing Shane appear, another player immediately came over and said to Shane, "It's too late for you to apologize and admit defeat. Otherwise you will be forced to lie down in our school's hospital for a while. I'm rushing to the library to read. Stop talking nonsense and let's duel." "Who is my dueling partner?" Shane looked around. When he saw the person he had agreed to duel with before, a flash of understanding flashed across his face. He nodded slightly and said, "So it's you." "It's me, Bootbottom, Silas Cavil, Hogwarts, Shane Belstead." The two exchanged names, shook hands, and then stood up from the edge of the duel stage. When they reached the center of the duel stage, Shane and Schiller saluted each other, then turned around and walked in different directions. After the ceremony, under the leadership of the student Bootbottom who served as the referee below, the countdown ended, and Shane and Schiller took a step toward each other at the same time. Turn them all into fossils. First of all, petrification is the highest level spell among Shane's regular magic. In terms of power and casting speed, it is the most suitable for the first strike. A gray light flashed instantly and headed straight for Schiller. But before the gray light hit him, Schiller's wand also glowed red, and the two spells collided and shattered in midair. When Shane saw this, he swung the wand in his hand to both sides of his body. The tables and chairs in the duel room instantly flew upwards and hit Sailor. Sailor was not merciless and smashed the school's own tables, chairs and benches without any distress. As the wand was waving, an orange hissing sound spread outwards, and chairs and benches exploded wherever it passed. At the same time, before Schiller could make a move with his hands, his wand pointed at Shane, and the blown-up fragments of tables, chairs, and benches immediately turned into crows and pounced on Shane. 10,000 bullets. Flame. Seeing the crows flying over from the other side, Shane resolutely raised his wand, and a fierce flame burst out from the wand, turning into a cloud of fire that quickly enveloped the flying crows and burned them to death. When the crow was burned and Madara was in pieces, Shane waved his wand again, and the flames immediately shot towards Schiller. Shane's transformation technique cannot yet transform the flames into the shape he wants, but it is entirely possible to slightly change the state of the flames and control them to attack the enemy. The flames rage, causing those watching the duel to retreat quickly, fearing that the impact of the duel would also affect them.
Schiller looked at the flames approaching him with a vigilant expression on his face. He took a deep breath of hot air and waved his wand violently before the flames caught up with him.
Imprisoned in a crystal wall. A ray of crystal light burst out from the wand in Sir Haut's hand, turning into a crystal wall in front of Sir Haut, isolating him from the flames.
The crystal wall spell is a magic passed down from generation to generation by Sylar's Cavell family. It can summon a crystal wall to block attacks. This magic has little protection against physical attacks, but its protection against energy spells, such as coma spells, disarm spells and even fire spells, is not bad. Quartet. Turn them all into fossils. After the flames subsided, Shane used the dissection and petrification spells again, but facing the huge crystal wall, his two spells had little effect.
At the same time, Schiller instantly controlled the crystal wall to move forward.
The huge crystal wall quickly crushed Shane. The surrounding Bottom disciples saw this scene and cheered. Schiller had used this trick many times. Maybe in a real duel this move won't be very effective if hit, but in the duel field this move is enough to make the opponent leave the duel field and win. Looking at the crystal wall moving forward, Schiller showed a smile of victory on his face. The physical defense type of my crystal wall is very low. Even so, relatively speaking, you, a new student, cannot cause any harm to my crystal wall.
Boom. The sound of breaking glass was heard. Schiller had a smile on his lips, looking at the crumbling crystal wall, the smile of victory completely frozen on his face. You must know that after using the smoke rope curse, black smoke came out of his body and his face was not good looking.
The smoke rope curse extracted from his body was of the highest level. In the eyes of experienced adult magicians, it was difficult for a new student to cast it.
Such powerful magic is a very unreasonable situation.
They naturally have reason to question whether there is a face on the back of Shane's head, or whether he is just a person who has come back from the dead. Just like their principal, there are rumors that their principal has the blood of a giant. Although this topic cannot be brought to the table, 603 everyone knows in their hearts that the guy from Hogwarts in front of them is not. He also has such a bloodline, right? With such powerful power, is he also a human? Controlling the thorns and vines, Shane wondered whether he should rely on the troll's thorns' magic resistance and skin talent to get past them. If it was a flat platform, everything would be easy. He could avoid the magic and go around it, but the dueling platform under his feet was long and stripy, with almost no room for dodge. He didn't know if he could persist on it. If he can't persist, he will lose the opportunity, and the gain will outweigh the loss.
Shane frowned and clenched his fists, looked at Schiller with some confusion and asked, "Your magic is relatively strong in terms of defense against magic, but it is too weak in terms of physical defense."
I haven't had time to use it yet. It exploded and shocked me. I thought I was going to be strangled to death. You're a monster, right? You punched my crystal wall, is that weird?
Seeing this, Shane used the iron armor curse and the petrification curse alternately, and for a while no one could do anything to the other.
This was only a half-truth, but it did effective harm to Schiller. As soon as he finished speaking, Schiller suddenly remembered that in front of Shane, it seemed that he broke the Quidditch team's broomstick with a flick of his hand. From this point of view, it is reasonable for Shane to have such strength.
The wand in Shane's hand was tilted toward the ground, and many thorny vines immediately grew on the duel field, growing longer and lusher, attacking Schiller in layers. Thinking of this, Shane looked at Sylar, who was using a spell more advanced than his own to cut down the thorny vines. He finally had an idea. Wonderful ideas are wonderful ideas, but Schiller did not give up halfway, but did it himself. The wand clicked again and a stunning spell was fired at Shane. After all, which normal person of 12 or 13 years old can break through the crystal wall? Doesn't this guy have the blood of some kind of magical animal or magical creature?
In fact, if Shane had used the tobacco rope charm obtained from Voldemort's remnants, he would have definitely won, but the magic itself was passed down to him from Voldemort. Shane was a little timid and did not want to use it in public, otherwise he would be seen. If anyone who has ever seen Voldemort use magic sees it, disaster is imminent. The two magics collided with each other, making a crackling sound. Plug fart ads by Bidgear Chapter 128. What kind of person is he? The strength of the troll and the backbone of the troll are Shane's great talents, but this does not mean that with these two talents he can be invincible. He can rush in front of the wizard and crush it with one blow. The power of magic is still greater than power, otherwise creatures like giants and trolls would not have been suppressed by wizards to the extent they are now. Even if Shane defeated Quirrell and the remnants of Voldemort, it was because Quirrell was first hit by Harry's body's defense against love magic and threw off his arm, and then Shane's sneak attack threw off his arm and throat, causing that he was unable to hold a wand or cast spells, and Voldemort's remnant soul was very weak and could only use the blood of unicorns to sustain life, so that it could not replicate much of its own power. Even so, it still fought with Shane against Quirrell. Despite this, it still fought with Shane for a while, and Shane finally calmed down Quirrell.
Therefore, the power of magic is ultimately stronger than the power of trolls at this stage. Now the only way Shane can maximize the effect is to combine the power of trolls with magic. Of course, if Shane found a giant in the future and temporarily took away skills or talents such as giant strength and giant skin, that would be another matter. At the time, it might have been impossible to transcend magic and hit the magician. And now, Shane will have to turn to magic to use his powers. Looking at the cut thorn vines in front of him, Shane waved his wand and drew a circle in front of him. The cut thorn vines immediately spun in front of him, quickly gathered together, entangled and intertwined with each other, and gradually formed a huge thick shield of thorns. Shane watched the shield form, threw his wand behind his back, grabbed the spiked vine shield with both hands, and rushed towards Schiller like a football player.
Shane's sudden move really shocked a group of Bobaton students around them. They had never seen such a duel before. They actually used magic to create a shield to resist magic attacks, and then charged towards their opponents. In their opinion, any no magician in his right mind would do such a thing. This should be the same as Schiller's method of using the crystal wall to knock people down. It is meaningless to ordinary wizards, but considering the power of Shane's blow that blew the crystal wall into pieces, it should have a different effect. When Belle and Fleur, who had just arrived, finished speaking, Schiller's continuous use of magic had completely destroyed Shane's shield in front of him, but at this time Shane had already rushed in front of Schiller. Dim. You're late. As he spoke, Shane grabbed Schiller's wand with one hand and pinched Schiller's neck with the other. He stretched his right leg forward, clamped Schiller's right leg behind his own, and with a little force, Schiller's whole body pressed to the ground. Shane pinched his neck and fell to the ground, turning into a man lying on the ground in a daze with his eyes open.
But after the duel began, Schiller discovered that this Shane was not simple. He could not be considered an ordinary freshman. Even among 5th grade students, few people could defeat Shane with confidence.
Accidentally threw Schiller's wand onto the duel table where you lost.
Shane Belstead, what kind of person is he? Schiller slowly came back to his senses. Although he was thrown into confusion, Schiller still struggled to stand up from the duel stage. He did not expect that he would lose to this new student in the duel, let alone that he would lose to this new student.
It was a condition of losing to the opponent. Originally, it was a pity for a 5th-year duel freshman.
He really wanted to have Shane's idea, and then let Shane get rid of it. Shane looked at the stranded Schiller. He knew that Schiller's intention was nothing more than to leave the battlefield so that he could find his way back. Of course, Shane could use the excuse that he was just a freshman to shut him up and completely prevent the next duel, but Shane had such a thing as a panel, and he couldn't wait to get more people to duel with him. So what? Shane looked at the frozen Schiller and continued. But I have just finished my 1st grade, and even if I start school next year, I will only be my 2nd grade. There are people in Bobatons who are better than me, and there are people in Hogwarts who are better than me. There are people who are better than me. What does this mean? A pillow for sleepyheads. Schiller is a good guy, isn't he? Originally, when he had just defeated Schiller, he wanted to say a few barbed words to make more people think highly of him and come to participate in his duel, but now it seems that this is not necessary.
Jiao Hao Hao. At the end of the day, Shane left the duel room with a smile, followed closely by Aldrich and Jason, who went straight to the library to read.
Looking at Shane's leaving figure, Fleur's eyes flashed with a trace of reluctance, but she showed nothing.
She just said to Bailey, who was standing aside, "Bailey, our old friend may be coming back next month."
It's okay if he is a student of Bowbottom, but he happens to be a student of Hogwarts, at least until he is defeated. Those boys probably won't let him go easily. I lost, but that doesn't mean that the magicians in Boothburn have lost. I'm just average in Boothburn. Even in the 5th grade, there are many people better than me, but not all of them are here now. Just Boothburn. I think there are a lot of people who could beat me at Buttbottom, right?
Schiller, I know what you mean, and I will give you a chance. In the next month, I will be at Bobaton's, Shane said as he covered the Bobaton students from head to toe.
After looking it over, he said, dueling is also a way to get ahead.
If anyone thinks he can beat me, come here at 10 o'clock every morning and I will be there on time. But even in the battle, Schiller didn't feel that he would lose. It wasn't until Shane blocked him with a vine shield and pounced on him that Schiller finally realized that the duel seemed to be out of his control. Anyone who has the opportunity to do this would not be pregnant. Who can blame him? What he just said was so hateful. It's just that I'm a little confused as to whether the gentle-tempered man who discussed potions with us just now is real or the one who just stepped off the duel stage. At this time, Schiller finally remembered that it turned out that he was defeated by his boyfriend, and he was only in the 1st grade. What did he mean by what he just said? If you pull it out, he will only laugh at his classmates Buttbottom who cannot afford to lose. The 5th grade can't afford to lose against the 1st grade. After all, I can't fight with him in the future. Ads by Bid Gear Chapter 129. The second test after the duel that day, no one came to Shane for nearly a week. Shane was deeply distressed. Guys like Butterbottom, wouldn't they just swallow that sigh? They wouldn't come to me for a duel, would they? So weak.
Unlike Butterbottom and the others, Shane clearly feels that Fleur and Bar have been more and more touched by him recently. This is a boon to these two people who have a very high level of magic, so Shane can ask them a lot questions and does not exclude communication and contact with them.
Walk out of the library and head to the auditorium. Shane has been in a 3-point line between the dormitory, the library and the auditorium recently. Most of the books in Bowbottom are consistent with Hogwarts, but there are also a small number that are not in Hogwarts, such as books on alchemy. Hogwarts doesn't have that many, it can even be said to be very few, but Bowbottom does have a lot of books in this area. Recently, Shane has spent all his time reading and studying books on alchemy.
Except for reading books on magic potion, transfiguration and magic spells, he has not read any other books. Although the time is too short, he has not read any other books. Not very fruitful, but he is quite a grand master in alchemy. Flora, how is the alchemy course at Boothburn? Is the alchemy professor still at Boothburn?
Fleur shook her head and said, Butterbottom's alchemy course is not an ordinary course.
In fact, alchemy is an elective course that can only be taken after the 4th grade. There are very few people who can take this course every year. They need to learn transformation and magic. If your grades in spells and magic potions are too poor, you will not be able to enter the alchemy course. Professor Barbarossa Coronel, who teaches us alchemy, has a very high status in Buttbottom. He will never stay in school until the holidays. He doesn't like working overtime very much, but he also likes smart and diligent students. For such students, he is very willing to provide some help.
Hearing this, Shane shook his head with regret and said, Unfortunately, I only have 1 month in Bowbottom, so I'm afraid I won't be able to see this professor.
Fleur looked at Shane, hesitated for a moment, and then said as Shane was about to walk to the auditorium, Shane, if you really want to see Professor Cornell, I can help you ask him. Maybe he'll agree. Before Flora could finish speaking, Shane shook his head and refused. Flora, thank you very much for agreeing to help me, but I shouldn't bother you about this matter.
This Professor Coronel must be that kind of person. As someone who dislikes trouble very much, you shouldn't let this professor bother you for my whim, it's not worth it. Shane, it's okay, this is just a test, I don't think Professor Coronel will do anything.
Human ability is limited. There is no need to waste energy on Professor Coronel for me. Just meeting once can't help me, so let's end this matter. 11. Flora stared at Shane blankly, her eyelids drooping slightly, she hummed in a low voice and stopped talking.
Aldrich glanced at Fleur and then at Shane, with a smile on his lips, but he said nothing because he was just a footman.
However, Aldrich's smile was still captured by Jason standing next to him. Jason realized something recently and his mood became relatively cheerful. Seeing Aldrich's smile at this moment, Jason asked softly, Aldrich, what are you laughing at? Are you thinking about something happy? Courtesy, smile, respect all belong to Shane only, but in the eyes of others, especially Jason, Aldrich is a different story. After listening to Shane's words, Schiller couldn't help showing a trace of shame on his face. Just as Shane said, everyone is waiting for someone to challenge.
As a result, he said, someone will still come to challenge, but no one has come to the appointment for a week. Schiller, after all, bears some responsibility. Seeing Shane arrive, Schiller immediately walked over, looked at Aldrich and Jensen and said, Shane, you just said that anyone who wants to challenge can come to you, right?
Shane was satisfied with the silence. He said goodbye to them and prepared to go back to the library to read alone. Recently, I go to the duel hall to wait for someone before 10 o'clock every day, and I have to wait until 10:30 every day.
But unfortunately, no one has come to the appointment for a week.
I am thinking whether I should waste precious mornings in the future. Where is the time to wait for those who just won't come? Okay, no problem, I'll make an appointment tomorrow.
After a short lunch, Fleur and Barr apologized and left.
The young master won't notice. When he sees me, he will always be the polite Aldrich. After saying these words Aldrich cast a contemptuous glance at Jason and suddenly quickened his pace. Walked 2 steps quickly, pulled out a chair for Shane to sit down, then pulled out a chair next to Shane for Flora to sit down, and finally pulled out a chair for Barry to sit down. As for Jason, Derek ignored him at all. Aldrich looked at Schiller who was leaving and said to Shane, Master, if you win another game, I think those students at Bowbottom will not trouble you anymore. 2 consecutive senior students against each other. The underclassmen's game is so over the top that if they lose 2 games in a row I don't think they have the guts to continue challenging you. Schiller agreed to the duel, turned around and took the people away. I may not be able to win tomorrow's duel. I used all possible techniques last time. Shane looked at Schiller. He learned the LV1 level coma spell from Schiller last time, but Shane had not learned this spell yet, which made up for his shortcomings to a certain extent and saved something.
Schiller is a pretty good blind box for Shane. If he can open his blind box often, there will be unexpected surprises. But having said that, are you ready for what I asked you to prepare, Aldrich? Okay, then I won't bother you, but when he arrived at the library, he saw Schiller and 2 people standing at the door of the library waiting for Shane.
Aldrich's smile remained unchanged, but the corner of his mouth firmly said to Jason, it's none of your business. Sock, I really should let the young master see your face, I think he will be amazed. Schiller coughed slightly, looked at Shane and said, I challenge another person. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning, we will still be in the duel room. The person who challenges you is an outstanding 5th grade student. His family is one of the oldest families in the Romantic Kingdom, he has quite a background, I hope you can treat him carefully tomorrow, he is much stronger than me. Ads by Bid Gear. Chapter 130 The First Failure. Master, this is the bag I made recently for the purpose of casting the Traceless Pattern spell. The things the master asked me to prepare have been placed inside. Using the connections of the Belstead family.
I found one made by a local elf alchemist in Romance Country.
Due to the rushed production time, the appearance looked a bit rough, so this shape was abandoned. The elf alchemist was very dissatisfied with this and refused to admit that it was his work. But they are of impeccable quality, very strong, and definitely meet your requirements, master. Aldrich, thank you very much. This is what I want to do, master. Okay, let's go to the reception. It's already 7:30. Don't keep everyone waiting. When Shane and the other three arrived at the duel hall, it was deserted.
Schiller looked around and saw 3 people standing in a corner of the duel hall.
These 3 people look very similar to the children of the Slytherin pure blood family. Obviously, the person Schiller mentioned must be among his subordinates. Seeing the 3 Shanes arriving, Schiller whispered a few words to them, then walked to Shane and said, "There will be very few spectators this time, and the duel stage has also been cancelled. The duel room is regarded as a duel hall." Hearing this, Shane raised his eyebrows slightly, and then said with a smile, "So I can't do the same thing again." The expression on Schiller's face was a little unnatural. He hesitated for a while before saying, "Isn't it very common in duels to adjust strategies based on intelligence?" As soon as Schiller finished speaking, Jason immediately expressed his position without waiting for Shane to speak. Of course it is a good thing to adjust the strategy, but you have lost the duel platform, which goes beyond the scope of adjusting the strategy. Shane raised his hand to stop Jason, who had finished speaking. Turning to look at Schiller, Shane smiled. "It doesn't matter, this is your home court, you have to perform in your favor, it doesn't matter, keep playing your game." If Shane was as obsessed with the issue of the elimination of the dueling table as Jansen was, Schiller probably wouldn't have felt it, but when Shane turned around and said he understood the issue of the elimination of the dueling table and agreed to home field advantage, Schiller was feeling a little uneasy. Shane looked at Schiller. Since the last duel, he knew what kind of person his interlocutor was. What he just said must have been said intentionally. Sure enough, after Shane finished these words, Schiller said with some shame, "I'm sorry, I can't influence this case, but I can guarantee that apart from the abolition of the dueling platform case, there will be no other unjust cases. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with justice or injustice at this moment. Mind your own business and don't dwell on this issue."
Shane said this naturally, and Schiller became even more disgusted after hearing this.
Glancing at Sylar, who was walking towards the exit of the duel room, Shane took Aldrich and Jason to the side and sat down. The people on the other side had no intention of coming over to say hello, and Shane didn't bother to meet them. Otherwise, after meeting them, he found out that this was a very possible guess. Shane felt that there was a possibility that he might be soft-hearted, which was not a good thing. We only sat there for a short while. When the time gradually approached 8 o'clock, many people gathered outside one after another, but they were blocked by Schiller at the door. Originally, these people wanted to make a noise, but Schiller said that it was inside. After the 3 people's requests, most of these people fell silent. Of course, not everyone was blocked out, such as Belle and Fula. When they came in, Schiller did not stop them. There were also a few young people who looked like 5th or 6th graders who also entered freely. Le explained to the outside world that because the space inside the duel room is a duel stage, people who enter here to watch the duel must have the ability to protect themselves. In fact, everyone knows that the people who come in are no more than those 3 people. The 3 people who entered were the 3 people who could not be joked about. 8 o'clock sharp. Among the 3 people on the opposite side, the tallest and strongest one slowly started to pace and walk towards the center of the duel hall. Seeing this person, Flora, who had just walked straight to Shane, immediately said to Shane, "Shane, his name is Cecilia Hilda, 5th grade, starting from 6th grade, he is recognized as the strongest person in 5th grade, you must be careful, if it doesn't work, give in immediately, he is still an upright person and will not take the opportunity to hurt you." "Thank you, Flora, but if you believe in me more or less, maybe I can win." Looking at the confident Shane, Flora was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'll wait for you to gain the upper hand."
0. Please give me flowers. Upon hearing this, Shane and Fleur were stunned. Flossie thought her words sounded too intimate, but they shouldn't.
Shane thinks it sounds a bit awkward, but it doesn't matter. It's awkward if you expect me to win anyway.
Walking straight forward, Shane looked at the other person. He was already very tall. He was about 1.7 meters tall when he was 12 years old. He looked about the same height as some students who were 4, 5, 15 or 16 years old, while the one across from him was about the same height. Cecilia was already 1.9 meters tall and had a strong body. Without the power of the troll, Shane felt that he would have left here with one hit.
Thinking of this, Shane suddenly realized that the reason why the 3 hostile parties chose Cecilia to duel with him was because they thought Cecilia was tall and strong and could withstand his own power. It turned out that they really underestimated themselves as a giant. Weird talent.
Both about him, Cecilia Shields, Hogwarts, Shane Belstead. The 2 saluted each other, and then walked to the corners of the duel room. Under Schiller's order, Shane and Cecilia immediately started fighting each other.
Both chose the petrification spell, but Cecilia's casting speed was much faster than Shane's. Two gray-white beams collided with each other and approached Shane. Cecilia immediately moved forward, waving the wand in her hand at the shortest path, and the spells she fired fell on Shane one after another. This casting speed. Gritting his teeth, Shane accelerated his casting speed under the pressure of his opponent. The iron armor curse plus the fastest spell, petrification, competed with Cecilia's attack and spell defense. Bang bang, bang, bang bang. The blue-white halo continued to ripple in front of Shane, like ripples on the water. Every time Shane made a ripple, he had to take a step back and quickly retreated to the corner behind him. He looked at Cecilia, who was approaching him step by step. He knew that in terms of magic alone, without using the tobacco rope spell, I have no way to defeat the opponent. I am no match for Cecilia. Ads by Bid Gear.